Chapter 801. The Jiang clan old man smiled gently and dismissed everyone else on the bow. Aside from the two core geniuses of the various clans, only the leaders of the various clans remained on the deck. These four old men were all Grandmaster-level martial sages. Furthermore, there was a bright light on their foreheads. They seemed to have comprehended wills. None of them were weaker than the Haotian sex elder Bai. In fact, their accumulation seemed to be slightly higher. When looking carefully, the heavenly sage laws behind them all linked together, forming rings of light that ranged from small to large. With one glance, it was impossible to tell how many rings there were. It was clear that his cultivation had already reached the peak of martial sage. He was only a step away from becoming a quasi-emperor. The Jiang clan old man took the lead and said, "This time, everyone should have the same goal. So, to avoid internal conflicts, I feel that we need to discuss this first." The leader of the Ying clan group was an old woman who still retained her charm. A man and a woman followed behind her. The man was handsome and elegant, exuding a righteous air of royalty. If Xiao Chen were here, he would immediately recognize the woman beside the man as Ying Qiong, whom he had an agreement with. However, at this moment, Ying Qiong wore gorgeous golden battle armor, outlining her perfect figure. She wore a golden phoenix coronet on her head, looking very noble and honorable. Her solemn and dignified expression made it hard to connect her to the mischievous girl who played tricks in the Stargrave Palace. The Ying clan old woman said, "Naturally, we have to discuss this. However, how should we discuss this? Does old brother Jiang have any good ideas?" The two old men leading the Yen clan and Lin clan remained silent. Clearly, they tacitly agreed to the discussion as they waited for the Jiang clan old man to continue. The Jiang clan old man smiled and said, "It's very simple. Everyone will rely on their own strength. We will fight fairly and not kill each other. Later, 1,000 thrones will appear in the sky. Each throne will have a number behind it. As long as you can sit on a throne, the number behind it will be your rank on the proud Son of Heaven ranking. If you rank in the top 10, you will be qualified to enter the Heavenly Dew Divine Spring." Everyone knew about this rule. Every time the sage and saint ranking was reshuffled, it would be like this. All the rankings would be messed up and the ranking would be rearranged. Everyone looked at this peak martial sage of the Jiang clan, waiting for him to continue. The higher the ranking, the greater the reward. However, with the wealth of our four families, some of the rewards from Bushan Palace are nothing to us. There's no need to fight for empty titles. As long as you can get a spot, you can accept being in the top 10. This time, there are quite a few disciples from the various clans who have come to participate in the rankings. However, you and I both know that the ones who can truly compete are the heirs of the various clans who have comprehended will. In this aspect, our four clans are not inferior to each other. We all have two princes who have comprehended will. In other words, we can fight for 8 spots. The old man from the Jiang clan paused for a moment before continuing. "What I want to say is very simple. Regardless of which throne is in the top 10, as long as the core disciples of the four clans are fighting for it, the other 7 must give up unconditionally. They can only fight for another throne." The Grandmaster-level martial sages of the other 3 clans lowered their heads in deep thought. They felt that what the Jiang clan old man said was acceptable. In this way, the internal friction between the various clans could be avoided to the greatest extent, and the benefits of each clan would be maximized. The Ying clan matron turned her head and discussed with Ying Qiong and another heir for a while before saying, "Our Ying clan agrees to this agreement." The Lin clan old man nodded and said, "Our Lin clan agrees as well." The Yen clan Grandmaster-level martial sage turned his head and asked in a soft voice, "Shirsan, Shirsi, what do you think?" One of the 2 Yen clan heirs was Yen Shirsan, whom Xiao Chen had met once before. The other was Yen Shirsi. These two had similar names, but their auras were completely different. Yen Shirsan cultivated the killing sword Dao. He had a stern, cold, and emotionless expression. Yen Shirsi's handsome appearance was radiant and generous, giving people a natural sense of closeness. "First Elder, just make the decision." I have no objections, Yen Shirsi said in a melodious voice as he smiled gently. Yen Shirsan's lips moved, and he said, "It doesn't matter." In the end, the Yen clan also agreed to this agreement. The Jiang clan old man smiled and said, "Good. Let's discuss the specifics of how to make use of the disciples of the other clans to cause trouble for our competitors." While the four sovereign clans discussed how to obtain the most spots, the leading elders of the three holy masters were not idle either. They were anxiously making arrangements. At the same time, the clans that believed that they had the strength to fight for the top 10 were also anxiously making arrangements. However, most of the sect disciples did not even think about getting into the top 10. To them, the sage ranking was just a grand event of the human race that happened once every 4 years. What they needed to do was to take advantage of this reshuffle and the chaotic battles to fight for their own rankings on the proud Son of Heaven ranking. As for the heavenly dew divine spring, it was destined to be an unattainable fantasy. It was not something they could touch. The arrival of the sovereign clans pushed the atmosphere to a climax. All sorts of discussions rang out endlessly. The fight for the top 10 was about to begin. This would be a chaotic battle for all the geniuses of the human race. Whoever could stand out would be the center of attention. The glory of the past could only become history. Only by getting into the top 10 could one truly obtain a spot in this age of geniuses. Kassier. Kassier. Starting from the one belonging to Shao Chen, the 1,000 oil lamps on the proud Son of Heaven ranking started shattering one after another. The surroundings immediately fell silent. Everyone knew that the true chaotic battle was about to begin. The battlefield was about to begin. Until the end of time, my body is light. I am free and unfettered. Glory will not die for 10,000 years, hot-bloodedness will never die out. One will not grow old even after traveling 1,000 mountains, one will not come even after looking through the autumn waters and winter. I hold the sun and the moon and pluck the stars, what can I do even if the entire world is my enemy? When the oil lamp that belonged to the White Emperor city Xia Hojue at the top of the pyramid shattered, a sage's voice rang out like the song of the great Tao, resounding in the world. The imprints of the predecessors of the human race all turned into images of light and soared into the sky. The voices of the various sages reverberated endlessly in the world. The disciples of the various sects on the surrounding warships all showed excited expressions. Under the influence of the sages' voices, they felt like they had returned to the ancient era, the most glorious period of the human race. Back then, at the peak of the martial Tao, hundreds of races fought in a chaotic battle. The predecessors of the human race shone with light, using great strength and wisdom. For the disciples of the later generations, they established a great empire, passing it down to this day and never falling. That was an age of epic proportions. Heroes came in large numbers, outstanding talents rose endlessly. Emperors were as common as the clouds, and sages filled the land. Now, the age of geniuses arrived again. The peak of the martial epoch would appear once more. Who could be unrivaled under the heavens and rule over the billions of humans? Since ancient times, the sages have always been lonely. The 10,000 years of mundane affairs are all for naught. A desolate sage voice suddenly rang out. The fire-like great Tao voice in the world suddenly stopped, and the image of a white-haired old man appeared in the sky. That was the spiritual mark left by the human sovereign of the ancient era. Even now, it had not extinguished. The human sovereign pointed to the sky, and the other human sages did the same. Boom! Space trembled, and a small world suddenly opened in the void. A black curtain of night covered the land. A vast star chart slowly unfurled in the sky. Many thrones with numbers on their backs floated in the dreamlike river of stars, giving off a light. After summoning the miraculous scene of the boundless river of stars, the marks left by the ancient sages flickered and vanished. However, after a while, the sect disciples on the 10,000 warships shot out like arrows. They gave off lights of various colors, showing fervent gazes as they flew towards the thrones in the starry heavens. In that instant, close to 100,000 cultivators charged out at the same time. The vast scene was indescribable. Naturally, the starry heavens were not the true starry heavens. That was just a small world that the human sages carved out. However, the thousands of cultivators was not just an empty number. Figures continuously jumped out of the warships of the various sects in a ring, continuously increasing this number. Tens of thousands of cultivators flew towards a small world at the same time. The scene was so majestic that several of the older generation cultivators sighed. There were 1,000 thrones in the starry sky. Behind each throne was a number formed by light. It represented the rank of the person who owned the throne on the prodigy roll. At the highest point of the starry heavens, 10 thrones stood out. They each stood in a corner and gave off a dazzling light. One of the golden thrones was even more unique. Not only did it stand at the highest point of the starry heavens, but its golden light was also dazzling. 2 soaring golden dragons were carved on the armrests, giving off the tyrannical aura of a king. That was the supreme throne of the proud son of heaven ranking, which represented the first rank, empty. Bang! 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 Suddenly, loud bangs resounded in the air. Several of the cultivators at the very front seemed to crash into something just as they were about to reach the starry heavens. A huge rebound knocked them back, causing their faces to swell. Their quintessence scattered, and they fell to the ground as they cried out miserably. However, there were also many strong sect cultivators who directly dove in without any obstruction. Then, they excitedly headed for the thrones at the front. That should be a test. Without a certain level of strength, one would not be qualified to compete for a rank on the proud son of heaven ranking. Even if the proud son of heaven ranking was reshuffled, no one would be allowed to take advantage of the situation. The other true inheritors on the deck of the Haotian sect's warship had already gone ahead. Only Shao Chen and Shui Lingling had not set off yet. Shui Lingling glanced at the incredibly chaotic starry heavens. Then, she said softly, "Junior brother Shao Chen, I will go first now. Let's meet at the highest point of the starry heavens." The profound sun bird on Shui Lingling's shoulder cried out sharply and turned into a clump of fiery light. Then, it quickly flew towards the starry heavens with Shui Lingling on its back. Shao Chen looked at the cultivators filling the sky. They all had excited expressions as they struggled to reach their destination. Lofty aspirations surged in his heart. Being born in this great age was the happiness of all cultivators. Chapter 802. Elder Han, Shao Chen is going as well. Han Qinghe stopped Shao Chen and said, "Don't be in a rush to leave. There are some things that cannot be said in front of others. Now, you can finally say them. The sect master told me to pass a message to you." Shao Chen stopped walking, feeling somewhat suspicious. The Haotian emperor, whom I have never met before, has something to say to me. Han Qinghe said sullenly, "The 3 holy masters should know about your martial spirit. However, due to certain reasons, even if they are not willing to see the descendants of the Qing emperor rise up, they will not do anything too excessive to you. However, it is hard to say for those sovereign noble clans. Back then, when the Qing emperor was in charge of the Bushan Palace, he was too domineering. Some of the sovereign noble clans were not convinced, so he destroyed 3 or 4 of them. Aside from the Ying clan, all the sovereign noble clans detest the Qing emperor. If they know that you possess the blue dragon martial spirit, they will definitely make a move on you after this battle." Shao Chen felt slightly stunned. He had not expected there to be such a secret. Back then, the Azure Emperor could even destroy a sovereign noble clan. Exactly how strong was the strongest sovereign martial emperor of the Kunlun realm during the ancient era? Han Qinghe continued, "Although the dragon subduing slash has not appeared for tens of thousands of years, and many people have forgotten about it, those old fellows of the sovereign noble clans will definitely not forget about it. Hence, the sect master instructed you not to use the dragon subduing slash in this sage war." Shao Chen smiled. However, there was no shock or fear in his eyes. Instead, there was a sharpness and rage. He said, "Shao Chen appreciates the Haotian emperor's kind intentions. However, there are some things that will come." When Han Qinghe saw the situation, he said anxiously, "Shao Chen, don't be rash. You still have a long way to go. Shao Chen stretched out his hand, and the lunar shadow saber appeared in his palm. His lips curled up into a smile as he said, "Future. Why should I deceive myself and others? I can't avoid it unless I cripple my martial spirit once more. I will never be able to avoid it. Running away is never the way to solve problems. I've been suppressing this anger in my heart for 5 years. 5 years ago, my father chased me out of the house. Now that I think about it, it was laughable. The reason was because I had awakened the blue dragon martial soul. Just because of a martial spirit, a father chased his beloved son out. Who can understand his pain? I can't tell anyone about the anger in my heart, and who can understand it? Who exactly did the Dragon's Gate's Qing Emperor offend? 50,000 years later, my Shao clan is still carrying such a heavy mountain, treading on thin ice. Since everyone in the world is afraid of the birth of the blue dragon, then today, I will declare in front of everyone in the world that there are not just 3 holy lands in the world. My blue dragon martial spirit is not something that cannot be seen. Right and wrong, gratitude and grudges were settled. Let all the gratitude and grudges of the past come to an end today. I've had enough. I've had enough. Since people will find out sooner or later, there is no need to care so much. Even if I die sooner or later, I will still die. Since that is the case, I should at least control my life and death in my own hands. I have accumulated resentment for 5 years, but I can't return to my home. I can't vent my anger. I've already waited for 5 years and advanced to peak unrivaled half-sage. If I still can't vent this anger, will I have to wait until I become a sovereign martial emperor before I can do what I want? How long will I have to wait? Will I have to endure this anger for another 100 years? That is definitely not me, Shao Chen. Definitely not. Let me be willful for once, let me settle my grudges and be myself. I am the descendant of the Dragon's Gate's Qing Emperor. I am Shao Chen. My apologies, Haotian Emperor. Electric light surged under Shao Chen's feet. With one step, he traversed 5 kilometers, instantly surpassing a large group of people. In an instant, he tore through the sky like a bolt of lightning, leaving many cultivators behind him. Boom! A figure landed on the deck, and a strong emperor's might spread out. This startled Han Qinghe. When he turned his head back to look, he saw that it was the Haotian Emperor personally arriving. Sect Master, why are you here yourself? The Haotian Emperor smiled faintly and said, since I have nothing to do, I came to take a look. This fellow really exceeded my expectations. He probably exceeded those 3's expectations as well. As Han Qinghe watched Shao Chen move further away, he asked, is that a good thing or a bad thing for him? The Haotian Emperor revealed a contemplative gaze. Then, he said, sometimes, it is impossible to proceed according to common sense. Perhaps one can really do something unexpected. Han Qinghe felt suspicious. He asked, Sect Master, what are you trying to say? The Haotian Emperor smiled faintly and said, this Shao Chen is not as simple as you think. The Dragon's Gate's Qing Emperor set up 50,000 years ago. How could he not have a backup plan? If he did not have a backup plan, the enemies he once offended would have killed all of his descendants long ago. Shao Chen is trying to cut off all means of retreat, forcing out the backup plan that the Qing Emperor set up. He does not want it to remain unclear. With his sharpness, he is destined not to be someone who can be easily manipulated. If he can really prove himself, I don't mind making a bet in advance. The Haotian Emperor revealed a determined expression as he muttered to himself. Without any obstructions, Shao Chen cleared the first floor's test and arrived at the small world. Starlight dotted the surroundings, and it was dark. It was like he was really in the starry heavens. All sorts of chaotic fighting sounds rang out. There were at least 100 cultivators fighting around each sovereign. Saber lights and sword images filled the air, and blood flew everywhere. Occasionally, someone died under someone else's saber. However, this place was rather strange. After someone died, they did not truly die. Instead, they appeared outside the starry heavens. These people were unharmed, but they could no longer enter the small world of the starry heavens, losing the right to continue fighting for the proud son of heaven ranking. Amidst the chaos, it was hard to avoid accidental injuries. As Xiao Chen walked, he ran into several cultivators flying at him. If he could dodge, he would. If he could not, Xiao Chen directly punched. With a surge of force, he sent a cultivator attacking him flying out of the starry heavens with one punch. After sending out 100 people, Xiao Chen's horrifying strength finally turned the area within 1 kilometer of him into a pure land. No one dared to barge in. Xiao Chen shifted his gaze upwards, looking at the 10 sovereigns at the very top of the starry heavens. The surrounding bustling scene and the sovereigns within easy reach were not his target. The cultivators of the 9 ranks of the great clans and the sovereign noble clans fought for the 10th to 2nd thrones. The battles there were more than 10 times more intense than the ones below. However, the group of people surrounding the golden throne at the very top of the starry heavens remained silent as they cautiously looked at each other. The Phoenix's Passion Palaces Nuanmuyun, the Divine Martial Gates Feng Wuji, the White Emperor Cities Shao Ho Ju, the Thunder and Lightning Palaces in Juanxi, the Yen clans Yen Shirsi, and the mysterious swordsman Duan Yi, who had recently risen up. The 5 of them all feared each other, sizing each other up. However, no one dared to act rashly lest they become a common target for the others. The first golden throne of the proud son of heaven ranking held a fatal attraction for some people. No matter how intense the competition was, they would do their best to fight for it. A brilliant light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. Electric light flashed under his feet as he executed Thunder Dragon steps at full power. Instantly, he crossed the starry heavens and arrived at the highest point. Then, he descended from the sky and slowly headed for the golden throne. Compared to the other 9, the number of people fighting for this throne was pitifully few. However, the intensity of the competition and the quality of the contenders was the highest. Without exception, these 6 experts were all demonic geniuses who comprehended wills. 3 of them were even legendary existences in the Tianwu domain. Their radiance and holy might deterred others from getting close. The first rank of the proud son of heaven ranking was not just an empty title. The luck of the ancient sages would land on it. The bountiful rewards of the Bushan Palace also tempted everyone. White Emperor Cities Shao Ho Ju held a sword in his hand. His gaze was like lightning, seemingly piercing through the sky. As he stared at the golden throne, he displayed absolute confidence. Before the reshuffle, Shao Ho Ju already held the first rank. Now that the reshuffle was over, he did not intend to give up the first rank. However, the intensity of the competition this time far surpassed Xiao Ho's expectations. Not only did his 2 old rivals from the Holy Lands target the first rank as well. The sovereign noble clans Yen Shirsi, the lower realms Lux's mysterious swordsman Duan Yi, and Juanxi, who just fought Feng Wuji to a draw. None of them were minor characters. No one dares to sit. In that case, I, Yen Shirsi, want this throne. Yen Shirsi smiled faintly and moved his feet, preparing to land on the throne. Boom! Just as Yen Shirsi moved his feet, the other 5 instantly drew their weapons. A strong aura, accompanied by the light of their wills, swept out. The true dragon lightning whip in Juanxi's hand, the scarlet blood spear in Feng Wuji's hand, and the heavenly phoenix sword in Nuanmuyun's hand were all subdivine weapons. The instant they were drawn, a melodious hum resounded in the air, lingering for a long time. Shao Ho Ju remained as unmoving as a mountain. However, the azure ring on his index finger started to flicker with light, indicating that he was ready to make a move at any moment. Only the mysterious swordsman Duan Yi revealed a faint smile in the depths of his eyes, appearing the most calm. Under the pressure of the 5 experts' auras, undercurrents surged in the condensed air. Winds blew continuously. At this moment, all they needed was a spark to kick off a huge battle. Below the starry heavens, the experts vying for the other 9 thrones felt the horrifying auras merging together. Their expressions changed involuntarily. Due to the agreement, the other geniuses of the 4 sovereign clans could not compete for the golden throne. The other geniuses wanted to, but they could not, fearing that they would lose sight of others. Due to various reasons, these geniuses could not compete for the first rank. However, that did not mean that they did not yearn for it. Yan Shixi gently withdrew his foot. His face, which was radiant with sunlight, cracked a smile as he said, "I was just joking. Don't be so serious. Brother Xiaoho, I see that your eyes are the biggest. How about you take the first rank?" Xiao Ju smiled coldly in his heart, but his expression did not change. He said, "Yan Shixi, why the need to put on an act? Since you want to compete, I do not mind letting you go first." No one was a fool. The first person to fly to the throne would definitely be attacked by the others at the same time, becoming cannon fodder immediately. Furthermore, one had to sit on the throne for 10 seconds before they could truly obtain it. How could it be that simple? Everyone here was an outstanding genius. However, they were not arrogant enough to think that they could defeat everyone else by themselves. They had to take advantage of the chaos. Chapter 803. And Juanxi toyed with the 9-segment True Dragon Lightning Whip in his hand as it flickered with crackling electricity. The light of the Will of Thunder scattered indistinctly as it resisted the holy might of the 3 holy masters. When Juanxi saw that golden throne, a fervent look flashed in his eyes. He wanted to move, but he resisted in the end. The atmosphere at the scene once again fell into a strange silence. No one dared to take a step recklessly. Just at this moment, a resplendent purple electric light suddenly lit up at the highest point of the starry heavens. That light was very dazzling and piercing. The electric light flashed for an instant before vanishing in an instant. If not for the stinging sensation in their eyes, they might even doubt the existence of this electric light. The 6 squinted and looked up. Their expressions changed at the same time. At some point in time, a white figure had appeared on the back of the golden throne. This person had delicate facial features and a cold expression. His white robes were pure and untainted by dust. He held a long saber in his right hand as he swept his gaze over the 6 with a calm gaze. White-robed bladesman, Shao Chen. In that instant, the atmosphere of the place filled with undercurrents surged. The gazes of Nuan Muyun, Feng Wuji, and Juanxi, and Yan Shixi all turned sharp. A strong wind blew, and thunderclouds spread out. The cries of the vermilion bird resounded in the starry heavens. The low roar of the black tortoise surged like a tsunami. The roar of the white tiger caused the winds and clouds to change. Shao Chen's appearance ignited the undercurrents that had been brewing for a long time. Thunder Dragon's Rage. And Juanxi's True Dragon Lightning Whip turned into a berserk lightning dragon. The light of the Will of Thunder gathered as it lashed at Shao Chen. It was like Juanxi was holding a dragon in his hand. One finger breaking the heavens. A murderous intent surged in Xiao Ju's eyes as he ferociously pointed at Shao Chen. The ring on his index finger flickered with a dazzling light, and a huge jade-green finger tore through the air, creating ripples. It seemed like it really pierced through the heavens as it ruthlessly pressed down on Shao Chen. Feng Wuji grasped the scarlet blood spear with one hand and gently spun it. The spear, as red as blood, spun rapidly, and the sound of a horrifying sea rose. A vast sea appeared behind Feng Wuji. The surging sea soared as the scarlet blood spear spun, forming a horrifying sea tornado. Suddenly, Feng Wuji pulled back his hand, and the scarlet blood spear stopped spinning. The sound of the waves stopped. However, the tip of the spear pointed at Shao Chen, who was standing on the back of the throne. An immeasurably tall sea tornado descended from the sky, sweeping towards Shao Chen. Nuan Muyun's expression turned grave, and a beam of fiery light shot up from the heavenly phoenix sword. With a casual wave, it turned into a vermilion bird in the blink of an eye and charged at Shao Chen. Nuan Muyun's expression turned grave, and a fiery light soared into the sky from the heavenly phoenix sword. With a casual wave, it turned into a vermilion bird and charged at Shao Chen. The smile on Yan Shixi's face was still as bright as ever. However, a murderous intent surged in the depths of his eyes. The mysterious swordsman Duan Yi, who had been in the limelight recently, saw Xiao Chen again. However, he had not expected to see him here. Duan Yi's lips curled up into a smile as he casually sent out a pitch-black sword light. The mysterious swordsman Duan Yi, who had been in the limelight recently, saw Xiao Chen again. However, he had not expected to see him here. Duan Yi smiled and casually sent out a pitch-black sword light. The horrifying scene at the highest point of the starry heavens immediately attracted the attention of many people. The elders and disciples of the various sects on the 10,000 warships did not even blink. Unexpectedly, it was the white-robed bladesman, Xiao Chen, whom no one expected. Xiao Chen had always given the impression of being low-key, never taking the initiative to cause trouble. Why did he suddenly take the initiative to fight for the first rank? This fellow is really crazy. He is facing 6 absolute geniuses with wills at the same time. With such concentrated attacks, even the sons of the 3 holy masters would not be able to block them. After defeating Bai Wuxue, his confidence probably swelled a little too much. The Tianwu domain is not as simple as he thinks it is. The radiance of wills and the holy might of the holy beast martial spirit are already enough to suppress him to the point where he cannot move. How can he possibly retaliate? The shocking scene of the 6 experts attacking at the same time startled some of the older generation experts. When they saw Xiao Chen's actions, they felt like he was committing suicide. Seated on the throne, Xiao Chen's expression was calm as he watched the heaven-ranked martial techniques flying over from all directions, as well as the invisible will and holy might surging over. Xiao Chen grasped his saber hilt with his right hand and drew the lunar shadow saber. The purple talisman in his sea of consciousness flew out of his forehead and turned into a beam of light soaring into the sky before quickly scattering. Thousands of bolts of pure purple lightning formed from the immortal will of thunder descended from the sky. As they moved, they looked like thousands of lightning flood dragons roaring ferociously from a distance. Boundless lightning tribulation. Xiao Chen shouted and turned into the emotionless heavenly Tao. He waved his hand, and the thousands of lightning flood dragons charged down. Thunder roared and lightning flashed in the sky. Dark clouds covered the sky. The thousands of lightning flood dragons looked like a vast army charging at the heaven-ranked martial techniques that the 6 people sent out. Earth-shattering explosions rang out continuously in the starry sky, causing the entire small starry sky realm to shake violently. The cultivators fighting for the other thrones all froze. They felt a strange horror in their hearts as they stared at the highest point of the starry heavens in shock. All sorts of shock waves stirred up that place, turning it into chaos. There were the sounds of surging waves, the cries of divine birds blazing with fiery light, and the boundless lightning flood dragons tearing through the sky. There was a loud rumble, and an energy ripple swept out from that world. The other hundreds of thrones in the starry sky were all swept away. Several of the cultivators who just sat on the thrones were the most unlucky. They vomited a mouthful of blood and bounced off their thrones. This could be said to be an undeserved calamity. Xiao Hoju's jade-like fingers shattered. And Juanshi's berserk lightning dragon turned back into the true dragon whip. Nuan Muyun's flaming divine bird turned into a fiery light and vanished. Yan Shixi's 9-sun sword qi vanished like smoke. The pitch-black sword qi that Duan Yi casually sent out immediately turned into ashes. Xiao Chen's 1,000 lightning flood dragons turned into strands of wandering electric light, crackling softly in the air. The expressions of the other 6 people were somewhat startled. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen broke the martial techniques that the 6 of them executed together with one move. Although the 6 of them had held back, those were still the fatal strikes of 6 people. If it were any of them, they would not have been able to achieve such a result. Whoosh! The strands of electricity in the air quickly gathered together, and an immortal aura spread out. A purple wool talisman reformed above Xiao Chen's head. It imitated the divine lightning and wrote immortality. This was the light of Xiao Chen's undefeatable will. And Juanshi revealed an expression of understanding. He exclaimed with some shock, he perfectly merged his will with his martial technique. A perfect fusion. He actually managed to do it. Ignoring the shock on these people's faces, Xiaoqin stood on the back of the throne and gently leaped off. Then, he leaned back and sat firmly on the golden throne. In that instant, boundless light soared up from the back of the throne, illuminating the starry heavens. A vast and unparalleled tyrannical aura of kingship surged out like a vast ocean. The 6 powerful demonic geniuses could not help taking a step back. What kind of saber was a saber? An inextinguishable hot-bloodedness, an undefeatable saber? What kind of sword was a sword? A sword that dreamt endlessly and never broke? Since ancient times, beauties had always loved heroes. Outstanding talents competed with each other for the top. When the winds and clouds changed, chaos arose. The dream of 10,000 years would be fulfilled today. Who was not an outstanding talent? Who was not an outstanding talent? Regardless of the next life, it only mattered now. They would stand at the peak and fight for the first rank. The instant the thousands of beams of light illuminated the starry heavens, the entire sky turned into a golden ocean. The light was resplendent, dazzling everyone. The 900-odd contenders for the thrones below all froze. They could not help casting their gazes over. The various sect elders and disciples on the surrounding warships all showed expressions of incredulity. Xiaoqin actually sat on the throne. He did not even bother to hide it before the 6 powerful demonic geniuses, casually sitting on it. He is really too bold. He sat on it for 10 seconds. How can he do that? At this moment, everyone focused their attention on the white-clad man sitting on the golden throne at the highest point of the starry heavens. You are seeking death. Xiao Hoju was the first to lose it. He had stood at the top of the proud son of heaven ranking for many years. How could he tolerate a latecomer trampling on his head? Heaven pointing drawing earth. He pointed out with a finger, and the ring on his index finger emitted a circle of blue light, fixing the golden throne in the air. It was as if he had really drawn a world. Then, an ancient stone finger descended from the sky. The index finger was plain, but mysterious talisman scripts were carved on it. Unexpectedly, a strand of Emperor's might spread out. Good. On the White Emperor City's Emperor-grade warship, the Grand Master-level elder leading the White Emperor City group could not help but clap his hands and cheer. He smiled and said, "This finger contains the essence of the White Emperor's heavenly might finger. It even emits Emperor's might. Even if that Xiaoqin stood, he might not be able to block it." The other old men on the warship's bow also appeared rather relaxed. Remaining on the throne for 10 seconds was not that simple. Most people would wait for the others to exhaust themselves before sitting on the throne. However, Xiaoqin sat on the throne in front of the 6 powerful demonic geniuses in their peak states. He had no intention of seeking death. This Grand Master-level elder had just finished saying, "Good," when a small hole appeared in the starry heavens. A strand of divine light entered Xiaoqian's body. In that instant, everyone could clearly feel Xiaoqian's aura soaring endlessly from the throne. It felt like everything in the world wanted to worship him. Myriad heaven divine fist, deities descending, tenfold combat prowess, break. Xiaoqin did not move from the throne. Instead, he punched at the stone finger descending from the sky. Xiaoqian's tenfold combat prowess, which was now a peak half-sage, could even shake the sky. Its might was horrifying. Chapter 804. Bang! Before the old men's horrified gazes, Xiaoqian's punch shattered the stone finger, which contained a trace of Emperor's might. The ring covering the sky also instantly shattered. How can this be? The group of old men were all stunned. Blood leaked out of a corner of Xiao Hoju's lips as he moved back 100 meters. His expression was one of extreme disbelief. Unexpectedly, Xiaoqin broke his superior grade heaven-ranked martial technique. Pa! Right after the stone finger shattered, Anjuanshi's 9-segment true dragon lightning whip whipped at Xiaoqin, creating long arcs of electricity that looked like it would split the sky in half. Anjuanshi's timing was very precise, not giving Xiaoqin any time to catch his breath or dodge. He wanted to pull out the throne from Xiaoqin. Xiaoqian's gaze sank. Just as the whip made of true dragon bones was about to strike him, he stretched out his hand and grabbed it. Before Yuanshi's shocked gaze, Xiao Chen caught the lightning whip in his hand. Immediately, a vast lightning-attributed quintessence surged out of the lightning whip and into Xiao Chen's body. The defenses in Xiao Chen's body isolated some of the lightning-attributed quintessence. However, a large portion of it still surged through his meridians and internal organs. And Yuanshi's face lit up in joy. He was very clear on how vast his lightning-attributed quintessence was. If Xiao Chen grabbed it like this, he would suffer severe internal injuries in less than 3 seconds. Hu Qi. However, before Yuanshi could even smile, a horrifying force surged out from the other side of the whip. That was pure physical strength, unparalleled. Before Yuanshi could react, he was pulled into the air by Xiao Chen. His body spun around in the air, and when Xiao Chen let go, he shot down like a cannonball. Boom! 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 Along the way, Xiao Chen crashed into some unlucky cultivators. The huge force severely injured these cultivators, sending them out of this small world. Nuan Muyun and the others became completely anxious after Xiao Chen blocked the attacks of 2 powerful demonic geniuses. Could it be that Xiao Chen could really sit on it for 10 seconds? The cultivators on the surrounding warships could not help but hold their breaths, not daring to look away. Normally, 10 seconds would pass in a few breaths. However, it felt extremely long now. Nuan Muyun, Feng Wuji, and Yan Shixi shouted coldly and charged at Xiao Chen, trying to force him to stand up. Xiao Chen did not panic. Since he had already decided to sit here, he naturally had a plan in mind. He might not be a match for 6 powerful demonic geniuses at the same time. Perhaps he was not a match for 6 powerful demonic geniuses at the same time. Xiao Chen leaned back and flew back 100 meters, carrying the golden throne with him. Then, he pointed his saber at the sky, and the purple talisman above his head soared into the sky. The divine lightning tribulation descended, and 3 bolts of golden lightning turned into lightning flood dragons descending from the sky, charging at Nuan Muyun, Feng Wuji, and Yan Shixi. As for the mysterious swordsman Duan Yi, he had already given up on the golden throne at some point in time and was flying towards the 10th ranked throne. The golden lightning flood dragons were formed by Xiao Chen's immortal will of thunder. The expressions of Nuan Muyun and the others changed slightly. This killing move, which completely merged a will and a martial technique, could not be underestimated. The 3 had no choice but to stop and execute their best moves to block Xiao Chen's strongest killing move of the lightning tribulation saber technique. Thousands of beams of light flickered behind the golden throne. Then, Xiao Chen gently floated up with the throne. As the light shone, he flew another 1 kilometer. After the 3 blocked Xiao Chen's divine lightning tribulation, they charged at Xiao Chen again. However, they had already lost most of their sharpness. Xiao Chen sat on the throne and brandished his saber, calmly blocking the killing moves of the 3. Bang! 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 The throne flew everywhere in the starry heavens. Everywhere it passed, it gave off a bright light. The other cultivators dodged, not daring to clash with its sharpness. Most of the 10 seconds had passed. All sorts of mysterious phenomena appeared around the throne. However, Xiao Chen remained as unmoving as a mountain. To everyone's surprise, he sat firmly on the throne. Xiao Hoju caught up and said sullenly, "The 10 seconds are almost up. We can't wait any longer. Let's use the holy beast's will to force him out." A light flashed on Xiao Hoju's forehead as he brought out the form of his will. It was a snow-white white tiger that gave off an unparalleled holy might. With a thought, a fiery light flashed on Nuan Muyun's forehead. The will of fire turned into a vermilion bird. It gave a sharp cry and spread its wings. Feng Wuji pointed with his spear, and the black tortoise formed from the will of light let out a deep cry. Then, it also surged out with an unparalleled holy might. The 3 holy scions summoned out the form of their wills at the same time. The horrifying holy might merged together, encasing the entire small world. The vermilion bird, black tortoise, and white tiger were legendary holy beasts. At this moment, all of them appeared at the same time. Such a scene was very shocking. The holy beast's will of the three holy masters has not appeared for 1,000 years already. A holy beast. This is a creature that only appears in myths. Only the most talented people in the three holy lands are able to condense the will of a holy beast into a form. Just the holy might is already hard to block. Now, there is the might of the will. In the end, this white-robed bladesman is too ambitious. He wants to take the first rank. Soft discussions could be heard in the surroundings. The 10 seconds were getting closer and closer. When the final second arrived, the three holy beasts formed from the will of the three holy beasts arrived before Xiao Chen. The brilliant holy might made it impossible for him to dodge. However, Xiao Chen did not even think of dodging. The blue dragon of the east was the leader of the holy beasts. Back then, the Qing emperor was peerless. He swept through the world, unrivaled. He ruled the Tianwu domain's human race. When the demonic calamity arrived, even the other races had to submit to him. He was the uncrowned king of the Kunlun realm's post-ancient era, the strongest sovereign martial emperor. Back then, the three holy masters were not even qualified to compare to the blue dragon. 50,000 years later, they actually dared to work together to pressure Xiao Chen. They were truly ignorant. The little azure dragon in Xiao Chen's dantian suddenly let out a resounding dragon roar, shaking the surroundings. Surging holy might spread out, causing mountains to crumble and seas to surge out. At this moment, Xiao Chen completely unleashed the king's holy might of the blue dragon martial spirit before everyone in the world without holding anything back. The anger that Xiao Chen had held back for 5 years was vented with this roar. A huge dragon-shaped image soared up from behind the throne. Xiao Chen, who sat on the throne, showed no expression. The moment the vast holy might of the blue dragon appeared, it blocked the combined holy might of the three holy masters. The two auras clashed. A melodious sound resounded in the starry heavens, like the sound of the sky shattering. The holy might of Nuan Muyun, Feng Wuji, and Xiao Hoju vanished without a trace before the holy might of the blue dragon. Only the azure-colored dragon might remained in the starry heavens. The manifestation of the three holy scions' wills had lost its holy might and was no different from an ordinary manifestation of their wills. The surroundings fell silent. When everyone felt the vast holy might of the blue dragon in that small world, they were all stupefied. The invincible sage might of the legendary three holy princes had actually been broken by someone. Thousands of arcs of electricity fell and gathered back into the purple talisman. Xiao Chen infused the will of the blue dragon into it. Then, he stretched out his hand, and the talisman swept out. Ka-xie! Ka-xie! A loud cracking sound resounded. Cracks appeared on the divine vermilion bird, the holy beast white tiger, and the auspicious black tortoise. Then, they instantly turned into motes of light and entered the foreheads of the three. The three paled, and blood leaked out of the corners of their lips. As they looked at Xiao Chen on the throne, intense shock appeared in their eyes. The three of them were holy scions. In the eyes of the world, they were unreachable, legends that would never fall. However, the strongest holy might of the three's combined will was still easily broken by Xiao Chen. Even after 50,000 years, the blue dragon's holy might could not be erased. The blue dragon was the leader of the four holy masters. This was indisputable. The countdown of 10 seconds ended. The thousands of golden beams of light radiating from the throne suddenly merged together, forming a huge pillar of light. This pillar of light encased Xiao Chen on the throne. The blue dragon image behind Xiao Chen had not scattered yet. Instead, it solidified under the cover of the beam of light, not moving at all. Yan Shixi, the son of the three holy masters, and Juanxi. Before they could accept this, Xiao Chen eventually obtained the first rank of the proud son of heaven ranking. The thousands of beams of light merged as the throne carried Xiao Chen higher and higher. The starry sky in the small world continued to rise as the throne rose. On the 10,000 warships in the surroundings, be it the elders of the various sects or the disciples who came to watch, they all raised their heads and looked at that unique throne. When Shaochen reached the highest point, he suddenly stood up and leaped down from the pillar of light. The vast blue dragon's holy might still lingered. Everywhere it passed, everyone moved aside. When they felt the holy might of the blue dragon martial spirit again, several people finally startled awake. When they thought of that legendary name, they all turned pale with fright. That is the blue dragon martial spirit. After disappearing for 50,000 years, it unexpectedly reappeared today. It really is the blue dragon martial spirit. The glory of 50,000 years ago actually reappeared. No wonder it could defeat the holy beast will of the three holy masters' son. Back then, the Dragon's Gate's Qing Emperor swept through the place, pushing the human race to the peak of the post-ancient era. He suppressed the deity race, fiend race, ghost race, and corpse race. From the last rank of the proud son of heaven ranking to the first rank of prime, this Shaochen really has the shadow of the Qing Emperor from back then. However, the Dragon's Gate no longer exists. Now that this Shaochen exposed his martial spirit, he will probably be in big trouble. All sorts of discussions resounded like a tsunami. The reappearance of the blue dragon martial spirit was definitely big news that would shake up the entire Tianwu realm. That was not right. It was news that would shake up the entire Kunlun realm. Back then, that name was like a nightmare to many people and many factions. The sovereign noble clans that refused to be disciplined were casually destroyed by him. Chapter 805. The god race, which had developed to its peak, had been ruthlessly suppressed by him just as they were about to show their strength. It was not until 50,000 years after his death that they returned to their former peak. The 18 demon monarchs of the deep abyss demonic world had come repeatedly, but Shaochen had blocked them all by himself. The Dragon's Gate Qing Emperor had too many enemies. Furthermore, all of them were powerful characters. Any one of them could easily crush the current Shaochen. Exposing his identity at this time was extremely disadvantageous to him. Sure enough, the crowd's guesses immediately became reality. Shaochen had just flown out of that small world when the three Grandmaster-level martial sages leading the sovereign noble clans, the Jiang clan, the Lin clan, and the Yan clan, soared into the air. The rings of heavenly sage laws behind Shaochen gave off a multicolored light that spread out for 500 kilometers, covering the sky and covering the sun. In the blink of an eye, Shaochen crossed the distance of 10 kilometers. Boom boom boom. The vast aura of a Grandmaster-level martial sage surged out like a solid tsunami. Some of the lower-ranked warships could not endure it and shattered. When the other cultivators saw this scene, they all gasped in surprise. The sovereign noble clans were too generous. Their decisiveness in making their move left everyone flabbergasted. Three Grandmaster-level martial sages attacked together, directly attacking a half-sage. Any one of them could easily crush Shaochen with a flick of their fingers. With the three of them working together, how could Shaochen possibly survive? On the Haotian sect's warship, the Haotian emperor glanced at the three holy masters in the sky, who did not do anything, and gently flicked his finger 3 times. Bang, bang, bang. The three Grandmaster-level martial sages all vomited a mouthful of blood and went flying back. Before an incomprehensible force, the high-quality sage-grade secret treasures on them shattered into pieces. The Grandmaster-level martial sages of the Jiang clan, Lin clan, and Yan clan landed on their warships with pale complexions. The heavenly sage laws behind them shattered with a ka-cie sound. The finger that the Haotian emperor had imbued into them exploded again, causing the entire ship to shake violently. The other martial artists on the deck were all sent flying. Attack! Fire the imperial magic cannons. Even if I die, I will not allow another Qing emperor to appear in this world. The three Grandmaster-level martial sages showed horror on their faces. However, they did not show much surprise in their eyes. Without exception, they all appeared extremely determined. An earth-shattering battle suddenly erupted outside the small world. With just a single exchange of blows, it affected the tens of thousands of warships. Holy shit! When did the Haotian Emperor come here? Let's go. Let's go. If we get caught in the aftermath, we won't be able to survive even if we have 9 lives. All the battleships started moving at their fastest speeds as they quickly retreated, afraid of getting caught up in the battle that was about to happen. Their warships weren't Emperor class. Even if they were Emperor class, they wouldn't be able to withstand a casual blow from Emperor Wu. The Haotian Emperor sneered. Stubborn fool. Without the blue-robed Emperor, how could an Emperor-class warship unleash its full power? The Haotian Emperor stretched out his hand and thrust it forward. 64 rings of golden heavenly laws appeared behind him. Countless stars spun around each ring of golden heavenly sage laws. A blazing sun appeared in the center of the rings of golden heavenly laws, giving off a bright light. The heavenly laws behind him seemed to materialize the starry heavens of the universe. A gargantuan hand appeared above the 3 Emperor-class warships, covering the starry heavens and the universe. Then, it gently descended and sent the 3 Emperor-class warships flying. Brother Haotian, that's enough. A voice rang out in the air. A middle-aged man in red vermilion bird robes smiled faintly as he appeared on the Haotian Sex King-class warship. Han Qinghe, who was at the side, raised his eyebrows slightly and bowed. Greetings, Vermilion Bird Holy Lord. The person who arrived was actually the current palace master of the Phoenix's Passion Palace. The Vermilion Bird Holy Lord's expression did not change much. He glanced at Xiao Chen, who was slowly rushing over. Somewhat speechless, he said, I'll go and negotiate with the sovereign noble clans. This fellow is really unexpected. He is extraordinarily courageous. The Haotian Emperor smiled and said, I don't think he is courageous or not. As he said, what will come will come. Can he avoid it? The Dragon's Gate's Qing Emperor's name will make it impossible for him to hide forever. When the Vermilion Bird Holy Lord heard the words, Dragon's Gate's Qing Emperor, he frowned slightly and said, it has already been 50,000 years. What is the point of mentioning that name? The Tianwu domain only needs 3 holy lands. However, the Haotian Emperor said seriously, however, the human race needs a leader. The Vermilion Bird Holy Lord's lips curled up as he said, haha. Him. Even the Thunder King, who was even more talented than him 5,000 years ago, failed to survive. Do you think he can? After taking a trip to the gates of hell, Xiao Chen slowly flew towards the Haotian Sex warship. Aside from Han Qinghe and the Haotian Emperor, Xiao Chen also saw a blurry clump of light that seemed to be talking to the Haotian Emperor. He also saw a blurry ball of light, which seemed to be talking to the Clear Sky Emperor. When he landed on the deck, the blurry ball of light disappeared. Suppressing the doubts in his heart, Xiao Chen performed a cupped fist salute to the Haotian Emperor who had saved his life. He bowed and said, Many thanks, Emperor, for saving my life. The Haotian Emperor raised his hand to indicate that it was not a big deal. He said softly, This is all I can help you with. You will still have to rely on yourself for the rest. Advance to Martial Sage as soon as possible. Xiao Chen nodded. Right now, the most important thing was to advance to Martial Sage as soon as possible. Otherwise, if he ran into such a strong Martial Sage, he would not be able to protect himself. What you saw earlier was the Phoenix's Passion Palace's Vermilion Bird Holy Lord. He is also the person in charge of the Bushan Palace. You don't have to worry about the matters of the 3 Holy Masters' land. In the future, just be careful of the people of the sovereign noble clans. I'll be leaving first. Finally, congratulations on obtaining the first rank of the Proud Son of Heaven ranking. After saying that, the Haotian Emperor did not linger. He opened a spatial tunnel and entered it. The chaotic battle in the small world of the starry heavens continued. The competition for the remaining 9 spots in the top 10 became even more intense. Xiao Chen glanced at them and ignored them. Then, he entered his room and started resting. After some time, the door to Xiao Chen's room opened gently, and Xue Lingling walked in with a smile. When Xiao Chen saw the smile on Xiao Chen's face, he felt excited. He asked, First senior sister, you obtained a spot. I was lucky and managed to obtain the 9th rank. The competition this time was too intense. Shui Lingling smiled gently. After you left, the 3 holy masters' land and Yan Shixi's group started to fight for the other spots. That scene was indescribably chaotic. The two chatted casually for a while. In the end, Shui Lingling could not help asking about the blue dragon martial spirit. After all, this news was too shocking. It was simply unbelievable. Unexpectedly, her own junior brother was a descendant of the Qing Emperor, the strongest sovereign martial emperor of the human race during the ancient era. Xiao Qin smiled faintly. He was rather open-minded about this problem. He said softly, "First senior sister, just ask what you want to ask. I will definitely not hide too much." Shui Lingling was slightly stunned. She had not expected Xiao Qin to be so easy to talk to. After thinking for a while, she said, "Actually, there is nothing to ask. I am just curious. Why did you expose your martial spirit? It will bring you a lot of trouble." Trouble? A trace of bitterness appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes. He smiled and said, "If there was trouble, it would have come long ago. The moment I awakened the blue dragon martial spirit, many people already knew about it. Only I treated it as a secret." Shui Lingling entered deep thought. Then, she said, 10,000 years ago, after the Qing Emperor dealt with the last Tianwu Emperor, he died mysteriously, and the Dragon's Gate was completely destroyed. Actually, you don't have to overthink this. Just treat yourself as an ordinary person. The glory of the Qing Emperor should not be a pressure on you. After the two chatted for a while, the first elder, Han Qinghe, walked in with a smile on his face. He said, "The competition for the proud son of heaven ranking is already over. Aside from our Haotian sect, no other sect obtained 2 spots." No wonder he was smiling so happily. In the vast Tianwu domain, there were only 10 spots for the Heavenly Dew Divine Spring. The Haotian sect obtained 2 spots with just one of the 9 ranks of the great families. The Haotian sect even surpassed the sovereign noble clans and the 3 holy masters. However, luck played a major role in this. Of the 10 spots, the Haotian sect obtained 2. The 3 holy masters each obtained 1 spot. The Thunder and Lightning Palaces and Juanxi, by Wuxue, and the mysterious swordsman Duan Yi each obtained 1. When Xiao Qin heard Bai Wushue's and Duan Yi's names from the first elder, he was stunned for a while. The appearance of these 2 names had indeed exceeded his expectations. Given Bai Wushue's strength, it would be impossible for him to stand out among this group of powerful demonic geniuses. As for that mysterious swordsman Duan Yi, Xiao Qin could not figure him out. This person originally intended to fight for the first rank but gave up halfway. Furthermore, this person's gaze seemed somewhat familiar to Xiao Qin. However, he could not recall when he had seen this person in the Kunlun realm. The final 2 spots went to the sovereign noble clans Yan Shisan and Ning Qiong. The sovereign noble clans had come with great momentum and great prestige. Unexpectedly, they only obtained 2 spots. The sovereign noble clans could be said to be the most depressed faction in this trip. This was especially so after they learned that the blue dragon martial spirit had reappeared. When Xiao Qin counted the 10 spots, he discovered that he knew most of them or had met them once before. The excitement on Han Qinghe's face had not faded yet. He said, "Come, the 10 of you have to quickly gather and head for Kunlun Mountain." "So fast?" Shui Lingling exclaimed in shock. Han Qinghe nodded and said, "We have no choice but to be fast. The people of the other races have probably arrived long ago." After leaving the warship, Xiao Chen and Xiao Qin followed Han Qinghe to an emperor-grade warship. This was a warship that belonged to the Bushin Palace. The other 8 people had already arrived at the bow of the warship. They were either chatting idly or resting with their eyes closed. The moment Xiao Qin stepped onto the deck, the gazes of the other 8 people immediately focused on him. The gazes of the 3 holy masters were the most complicated. All along, the holy beast martial spirit had been unique. The martial spirits of other cultivators were no longer useful after they advanced to martial king. Only the holy might of the holy beast martial spirit could be passed down continuously. Even Emperor Wu still had great might. Now, there was one more person. Not only did this person possess a holy beast martial spirit, but his holy might far surpassed theirs. Chapter 806. Shao Chen felt helpless. He greeted Ing Qiong and Yan Shisan, whom he was familiar with. Then, he stood at the side with Shui Lingling and started chatting. After a while, a tall cultivator wearing official robes walked out of the warship's hold. Based on his aura, he was actually the blue-robed emperor. Behind him were the elders of the various sections. Most of them had faint smiles on their faces. No matter what, as long as they could obtain a slot, their sects would have 100 more martial sages within 100 years. The elders of the various sects who managed to obtain a slot were in a rather good mood. The blue-robed emperor said sullenly, "I believe the elders of your sects have already explained where you will be going later. I will not repeat myself. I will only say one thing. Treasure this opportunity well. It was not easy for the Bushin Palace to obtain 10 slots for you. Do not forget this favor in the future." As the blue-robed emperor spoke, his gaze lingered on Yan Shisan and Ing Qiong for a long time. Clearly, the upper echelon of the Bushin Palace did not think well of the sovereign noble clans. They were clearly human factions, but they were not willing to work together. They did not care about the survival of the human race, only caring about their own interests. Furthermore, they were extraordinarily strong. Yan Shisan's stern face did not show any expression. Ing Qiong's expression did not change either. The two of them did not care about what the blue-robed emperor said. Kunlun Mountain was the center of the entire Kunlun realm. It was in the center of the profound domain and had existed for a long time since the immortal epoch. The Kunlun realm had 5 domains: the Fiend domain, the Ghost domain, the Deity domain, the Tianwu domain, and the Corpse domain. Each of the 5 domains was occupied by a race. There were 2 other domains, the Primal Chaos domain and the Profound domain. There was no need to explain the Primal Chaos domain. It was a land of chaos and evil, located at the borders of the Kunlun realm. The Profound domain was very different. It was in the center of the Kunlun realm and bordered all 5 domains. It had more resources and remnants than the other 5 domains combined. Almost all the elite factions and peak geniuses of the Kunlun realm had gathered here. The headquarters of the human race's sovereign noble clans were also here. It was not uncommon for the various clans to fight openly and covertly here. As long as one party was weak, the other clans would immediately occupy their territory. The Bushin Palace of the Sky Martial Domain, the Ghost Palace of the Ghost Domain, the Corpse God Palace of the Corpse Clan, the Thousand Deity Sect of the God Domain, and the Heavenly Demon Palace of the Demon Domain. These colossal existences like the Bushin Palace had stationed a large number of elite warriors in the mysterious domain. Aside from this, there were also ancient clans like the sovereign noble clans of the human race that had occupied this place for tens of thousands of years. The factions of the entire profound domain were very complicated and chaotic. The competition between the younger generation of the various clans was even more intense. It was not something the clans in their own domains could compare to. Half a month later, the Emperor-grade warship of Bushin Palace finally flew out of the vast Tianwu domain and reached the profound domain. However, it was still a long way from Kunlun Mountain. The Emperor-grade warship of Bushin Palace pierced through the clouds. Many ancient cities appeared before everyone's eyes. Several of these cities had great accumulations. Formless dragon images could be seen floating above the cities. That was the king's chi. This proved that a sovereign martial emperor once appeared in the faction of this city. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, sovereign martial emperors still looked after their clans. If the dragon images were solid, it meant that the faction of that city still had a sovereign martial emperor protecting it. However, most of the dragon images were immaterial. Very few were solid dragon images. The number of Emperor Wu who could be conferred king in the Kunlun realm could be counted on one's fingers. At least, that was how it looked on the surface. Shao Chen looked at the scenery below. After he found it somewhat boring, he returned to his room and took out the painting of Qing Emperor drawing the saber. Soon, knocking came from outside Xiao Chen's room. He put away the painting and opened the door. When Xiao Chen saw who it was, he was not surprised at all. Instead, he felt that it was too late, much later than he expected. "Come in, then." After closing the door, Xiao Chen invited Ying Qiong in. At the same time, he poured her a cup of tea. Ying Qiong was not in a rush to sit down. Instead, she looked around at Xiao Chen as if this was the first time she saw Xiao Chen. "I really wonder how many more secrets you have." Ying Qiong sighed somewhat helplessly before slowly sitting down. Xiao Chen gave the other party a deep look and asked, "I should be the one asking you that. Why is it that when the people of the 3 sovereign noble clans saw me, they wanted to kill me with a slap immediately? Only your Ying clan did not make a move." Ying Qiong picked up the teacup and took a sip. She smiled and said, "Qing Emperor had friends as well. When he was in charge of Bushan Palace, our Ying clan could be considered his ally. However, Qing Emperor died 10,000 years ago, and the Dragon's Gate no longer exists. Now, it is hard to say how many people in the Ying clan still adhere to the alliance from back then." Xiao Chen thought for a while before asking, "What connection does your Ying clan have to the great Qin nation's royal court in the Sky Dome realm?" Ying Qiong smiled faintly and said, "It can be considered a very important branch of our Ying clan. It is very mysterious, but I'm not sure about the details. That is a matter of the upper echelons, directly issued by the ancestor of our Ying clan." Xiao Chen felt excited. It looked like if he had time, he really should make a trip to the Sky Dome realm. Perhaps Ying Yu knew more than he imagined. However, there was something else that was more important right now. Xiao Chen asked calmly, "How are the 3 main ingredients for the breaking sage pill coming along?" Ying Qiong had prepared for this long ago. He said, "It is rather smooth. I already found 2 ingredients. I will definitely be able to find the remaining one within 2 months." 2 months was not a long time, it was much faster than Xiao Chen had expected. Xiao Chen said, "Once you are done, remember to inform me immediately. I can give you the other half of the core painting piece at any time." Right now, Xiao Chen was more anxious about advancing to Martial Sage than anyone else. Without advancing to Martial Sage, he would not feel safe at all. Ying Qiong nodded gently and changed the topic. "How much do you know about the Heavenly Dew Divine Spring? Have you ever wondered why cultivators who soak in the Heavenly Dew Divine Spring are guaranteed to advance to Martial Emperor within 100 years? Naturally, Xiao Chen had thought about this before. So, he shared his understanding. Those who can obtain the qualifications to soak in the Heavenly Dew Divine Spring are the elites of the various races. Even describing them as demonic geniuses would be underestimating their talent. Even without the Heavenly Dew Divine Spring, they have a high chance of advancing to Martial Emperor. The Heavenly Dew Divine Spring cleanses their marrow and blood, raising their already monstrous talent to another level. It would not be strange for them to advance to Martial Emperor earlier." Ying Qiong giggled and said, "Your guess is pretty good. However, this is not the most crucial point. Do you know what is suppressed under Kunlun Mountain?" Xiao Chen asked out of curiosity, "What is it?" "The Rock of Origin." The Rock of Origin was very mysterious. It was said to be the heart of the entire Kunlun realm. Be it the martial epoch or the immortal epoch, they were all born from it. Ying Qiong continued, "If the Rock of Origin is destroyed, the entire Kunlun realm will fall apart. In other words, whoever controls the Rock of Origin will be the true ruler of the Kunlun realm. The Deep Abyss demonic world has repeatedly invaded the Kunlun realm for tens of thousands of years. Their goal is to destroy Kunlun Mountain and obtain the Rock of Origin. However, right now, the Rock of Origin is sealed under Kunlun Mountain. The various races cannot control it, and they do not dare to rashly destroy the seal. Others do not know much about the wondrous uses of the Rock of Origin." When Xiao Chen heard this secret, his expression did not change much. This was something too distant. He asked, "What does the Rock of Origin have to do with the Heavenly Dew Divine Spring?" The heavenly dew divine spring is formed by the mist produced by the rock of origin. Now, do you know why cultivators who soak in the spring will definitely advance to martial emperor within 100 years? Ing Cheong said with a smile. If that was really the case, advancing to martial emperor within 100 years was indeed understandable. After all, the rock of origin had such a heaven-defying origin. It was completely understandable for a miracle to happen. The two chatted for a while more before saying their goodbyes. 5 days later, when Xiaochen heard some startled cries coming from outside, he stopped practicing the painting of the Qing emperor drawing the saber and went to the bow deck. At the limits of his vision, Xiaochen saw a row of vast mountain ranges. These mountain ranges rose and fell without end, looking like they split the entire profound domain in half. In reality, this was indeed the case. The Kunlun mountain range spanned tens of millions of kilometers. There were countless mountain peaks. Until now, no one had managed to completely explore this mountain range. There were many remnants and formations from the immortal epoch. Even some sovereign martial emperors did not dare to rashly enter. During the ancient era, people had even seen legendary immortal beasts. They were extremely mysterious. In the center of the mountain range was the main peak of the Kunlun mountain range. It towered into the clouds, piercing the sky. Spiritual mist surrounded it, blocking people's vision and preventing them from seeing how tall it was. The mountain peak was majestic and magnificent, at least 1,000 times taller than any mountain that Xiaochen had seen before. Furthermore, there was a strange charm to it. Xiaochen carefully observed the many surrounding peaks. He felt that the main peak of the Kunlun mountain range, which stood out among the many peaks, was different in many ways. Unfortunately, Xiaochen did not know geomancy, so he could not make out much. At this moment, the Bushan Palace's blue-robed emperor, who had not shown himself for a long time, came out as well. When he saw that majestic Kunlun mountain, a look of awe appeared in his eyes. The speed of the emperor-grade worship was very fast. The originally distant main peak of the Kunlun mountain range became clearly visible at the limits of Xiaochen's vision. The feeling of that vast and majestic aura was even more direct. No matter who looked at this peak, they would feel extremely insignificant. Just at this moment, auras that made everyone tremble from the bottom of their hearts swept over from every corner of the mountain peak. Including Xiaochen, the 10 Tianwu domain demonic geniuses all knelt on one knee. Sweat poured down their foreheads, and their expressions were extremely depressed. The Grandmaster-level martial sages of the various sects also felt extremely uncomfortable. They spread out their auras and did their best to resist. However, the auras left as quickly as they came. When they saw that it was the Bushan Palace's worship, they immediately withdrew. Chapter 807. The expressions of Xiaochen and the others relaxed. Only then did they stand up. They all saw horror in the other party's eyes. In that instant, at least 20 Emperor Wu's auras swept over. When they looked at Kunlun Mountain, they found it even more unfathomable. How rare were Emperor Wu's. However, there were more than 20 of them on this mountain peak. Just thinking about the hidden experts made one's scalp go numb. It looked like this Kunlun Mountain was indeed suppressing the rock of origin. With such a lineup, even if a demon monarch came, he would not be able to force his way in. Xiaochen looked around and noticed that mysterious swordsman, Duan Yi. A barely discernible fervor flashed in his eyes. Logically speaking, anyone would be excited to soak in the heavenly dew divine spring. However, there was clearly something else in this person's gaze. Like Xiaochen, this person came from the lower realm. However, for the first 1 or 2 years, he had been a nobody, cultivating in an unremarkable rank 8 sect. It was only in the recent half a year that this person suddenly rose up, directly defeating one of the 7 giants. Only then did he rise to fame and attract everyone's attention. However, that happened to be the golden period for the various lower realm geniuses to rise up. Not many people would suspect such a genius who suddenly rose up. When Duan Yi saw Xiaochen looking at him, he turned his head and smiled gently. His expression was calm, showing no signs of panic. Duan Yi turned his head back and started chatting with the old man of his sect. Xiao Chen withdrew his gaze, no longer thinking about this problem. With so many Emperor Wus garrisoned at Kunlun Mountain, unless the other party wanted to commit suicide, he would not dare to play any tricks. The warship slowly turned around and stopped a kilometer above a flat ground halfway up the main peak of Kunlun Mountain. There was a flickering door of light on the flat ground. 5 Emperor Wus stood on stone platforms in front of the door of light. Each of the 5 Emperor Wus corresponded to a race: the human race, the fiend race, the deity race, the fiend race, and the corpse race. Seeing this scene, even a fool could guess that the heavenly dew divine spring should be behind the door of light, a place guarded by the 5 races. Not far from the flat ground, there was a flight of stairs that led to a higher place. From afar, it was impossible to tell how many steps there were. The flight of stairs at the end of his sight was hidden in the clouds, ethereal and ethereal. Xiao Chen looked around. In midair, the fiend race, ghost race, and corpse race's emperor-class warships had already arrived. Only the celestial race's warships were nowhere to be seen. There were no peerless demonic geniuses of the younger generation on the battleships of the 3 races. They must have all gone down. On the stone platform below, Emperor Wu of the human clan looked at the battleship of the Bushan Palace, nodded slightly to the blue-robed emperor in his official robe on the bow, and then immediately closed his eyes. The blue-robed emperor said in a deep voice, "The 10 of you, follow me down. The rest of you, don't move. Just wait here." Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, Xiao Chen and the others were lifted up by an irresistible force before they could even resist. When they regained control of their bodies, they were already standing on the platform, behind the human race's Emperor Wu. In that short instant, it was like teleportation. Xiao Chen and the others could not understand the blue-robed emperor's strength at all, it was simply incredible. Looking around, there were 10 young demonic geniuses with deep auras standing behind the fiend race's Emperor Wu, the ghost race's Emperor Wu, and the corpse race's Emperor Wu. When the geniuses of the other 3 races were placed together, one would discover that their auras were completely different. The fiend race's younger generation released their auras, berserk and ferocious. They did not hide their auras at all, as if they would erupt at any moment. The corpse race's younger generation all had dark complexions, and their skin looked as tough as iron. They all looked lifeless. However, the ferocious light in their eyes was withdrawn as they sized up Xiao Chen and the others, who had just landed, with malicious intent. As for the ghost race, they were like the corpse race cultivators, similarly lifeless. However, they appeared even more serene and deep. If the corpse race's lifeless appearance was just a facade, the berserk and madness in their hearts were no less than the fiend race cultivators. However, the ghost race cultivators were completely lifeless. They did not seem to have any signs of life at all. Their fair faces were as calm as still water, like they were carved from the same mold. Coincidentally, Xiao Chen knew all the young demonic geniuses of these 3 races. The fiend races was the little heavenly monkey, Feng. The corpse races was Wang Can, whose death throne Xiao Chen snatched away. The ghost races was the red-dressed woman with the 8 ghosts carrying the palanquin. The moment the first 2 appeared, they immediately cast hostile gazes at Xiao Chen. However, the little heavenly monkey seemed to be more patient. His hostile gaze disappeared in a flash. The hostility in Wang Can's eyes never faded. He even looked at Xiao Chen in disdain. As for the red-dressed girl, she did not even look at Xiao Chen from start to end. The deity race's younger generation had not arrived yet, so the door of light could not open for now. The other races seemed to be used to the deity race putting on airs, so they were not too surprised. There are really a lot of old acquaintances. Xiao Hoju, we are about to enter the divine spring. Do you dare to make a small bet with me? A burly, bare-chested youth with faint lion tattoos on both sides of his cheeks leaped out from behind the fiend race and mocked Xiao Hoju. This was the son of the human race's 3 holy masters. He had gone out to wander the outer realms long ago. He was rather famous in the entire Kunlun realm, so he would definitely have many grudges. Clearly, this fiend race genius had a story with Xiao Hoju. Shui Lingling whispered into Xiao Chen's ear, the one who leaped out is the Golden Lion race's Tu Zhe. He is considered the third strongest person of the fiend race's younger generation. Once, Xiao Hoju tricked him in a secret realm in the profound domain. He has a spirit fiend bloodline in his body. In the ancient era, there were 100 fiend ancestors. These fiend ancestors were all powerful sovereign martial emperors. Some of these fiend ancestors' bloodlines were passed down. Their descendants were far stronger than the geniuses of the same generation. At the same time, they had some innate abilities. These bloodlines were known as spirit fiend bloodlines in the fiend domain. They were similar to the human race's sovereign clans that had survived for tens of thousands of years. Xiao Hoju smiled coldly and leaped out. He said, "Do you think I am afraid of you? What do you want to bet? Speak." Tu Zhe smiled confidently and said, "It's very simple. This place is not suitable for a real fight. We will just use our moves and not use our heavenly sage laws. I will not transform into my fiend form, and you will not use your holy beast martial spirit. Let's fight like this. The loser will give the winner 5,000 black astral coins." One black astral coin was equivalent to 100 ordinary astral coins. 5,000 black astral coins was 500,000 astral coins. Given the two's status, this was not a large sum. The wager was not important. The main thing was that if they lost in front of so many geniuses, they would lose face. Xiao Hoju had some misgivings. This Tu Zhe clearly came prepared, waiting for him for a long time. Furthermore, the physical body of the fiend race was much stronger than that of humans. Without using quintessence or heavenly sage laws, the other party clearly held an advantage. However, if Xiao Qin did not agree in front of so many people, it would seem like he was a coward. If word of this spread, his reputation would suffer. However, with my strength, as long as I am not at an absolute disadvantage, I should not have any problems remaining undefeated. Even if I lose, it will be fine as long as I do not lose terribly. After all, everyone knew that the physical body of humans was much weaker than the physical body of the fiend race. Thinking this, Xiao Hoju directly agreed, "I will gladly accompany you." Tu Zhe laughed loudly and said heavily, "Xiao Hoju, you are really reckless. Let's see how you embarrass yourself today." After Tu Zhe spoke, he stomped heavily on the ground. His figure flashed, and the friction between his body and the air gave off a piercing explosion. Then, he punched at Xiao Hoju's face. Xiao Hoju felt that something was wrong. However, the other party's fist was already before him. Without much time to think, he executed a skillful move and threw a palm strike. Xiao Hoju wanted to strike the side of Tu Zhe's fist, using the technique of using little force to push away the other party. Pa! However, this palm strike landed heavily on Tu Zhe's fist, giving off an ear-splitting sound. Tu Zhe's straightforward punch did not budge at all, not deviating at all. Xiao Hoju was startled. He felt like he had struck a mountain, his palm aching. The other party's strength far surpassed his own. Xiao Hoju could not do anything about using skill. When the fist arrived, Xiao Hoju had no choice but to quickly extend his left hand to block his face, trying to block. Ka-xie! Ka-xie! The sound of bones shattering rang out. Tu Zhe's punch contained an unknown amount of force. It directly fractured Xiao Hoju's left forearm. The force did not diminish, continuing to surge forward and striking Xia Hoju's face through his arm. Xia Hoju's body fell backward. Tu Zhe chuckled and took advantage of the situation to step forward. Then, he punched the fallen Xiao Hoju again. With his left arm broken, Xiao Hoju's complexion paled. He appeared to be in incredible pain. He flipped twice in the air, dodging this punch. Boom! When the fist landed on the ground, cracks spread out. Shattered rocks flew everywhere in that instant. Since Xiao Hoju had underestimated Tu Zhe's strength at the start, he was at an absolute disadvantage. Tu Zhe forced him to dodge all over the place, not even giving him a chance to catch his breath. After 10 moves, Tu Ze grabbed hold of an opportunity and kicked Xiao Hoju's chest, sending him flying. The fist contained a ferocious force. Helpless, Xiao Hoju could only forcefully use his quintessence to dissipate this force before he could stand firmly. In less than 10 moves, Tu Ze forced Xiao Hoju to use his quintessence and kick him away. He even nearly fell to the ground. Xiao Hoju was in a sorry state. Seeing the gazes of the surrounding cultivators, Xiao Hoju's expression turned incredibly sullen. This time, Xiao Hoju had completely embarrassed himself. He tossed a ring with 1,000 black astral coins on it to the other party. Then, he walked to the back of the group without saying a word. Tu Ze caught the ring and laughed in a carefree manner. This old man just happened to attain a rank 1 physical body half a month ago. I can now punch out with 1,000 tons of force. Xiao Hoju, you are really reckless. How dare you compete with me in terms of physical strength? I defeated you in 10 moves. What dogs hit Holy Sun? He is not worth mentioning. Chapter 808. The others revealed expressions of understanding. The physical bodies of the fiend race had a great advantage over the humans in the first place. Now that Tu Ze had a rank 1 sage body, he had an even greater advantage. Xiao Hoju's defeat was understandable. Actually, he should not have agreed to this bet in the first place. Xiao Hoju could only blame himself for being too conceited. After losing in such a sorry state and being humiliated by Tu Ze, Xiao Hoju felt very sullen, so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Tu Ze swept his gaze through the youths of the human race. Then, he said with some reluctance, "Is there anyone who wants to stand up for Xiao Hoju? I, Tu Ze, will accompany you at any time." The others remained silent, not saying anything. In terms of strength, no one would fear Tu Ze in a one-on-one fight. However, they knew that Tu Ze had advanced to a rank 1 sage body, and his strength had reached 1,000 tons of force. In a situation where they could not use their quintessence or heavenly laws, how could they be willing to be spendthrift? It turns out that you are all a bunch of spineless cowards. You do not even have the guts to do this, and you still managed to obtain 10 spots. What a waste of the heavenly dew divine spring. Tu Ze's lips curled up in a cocky manner as he turned to leave. The youths of the human race were furious. However, they were still rational and did not make any rash decisions. When the little heavenly monkey of the fiend race saw this scene, it felt excited. Its lips moved as it sent a voice projection to Tu Ze. Then, it looked coldly at Xiao Chen. When Tu Ze heard the little heavenly monkey's voice projection, he could not help but stop. He turned around and looked at Xiao Chen. "You are Xiao Chen, that so-called white-robed blades man, the only cultivator to come out of misleading Fog Lake in 10,000 years?" Xiao Chen felt it was strange. He did not know how the other party noticed him. He replied calmly, "Whether I am or not, what does it have to do with you?" A sinister look flashed in Tu Ze's eyes. He slowly walked over and said, "Very good. It looks like it really is you. Do you dare to make a bet? I, Tu Ze, will give you 3 moves. Give me 3 moves." After hearing this, Xiao Chen couldn't help but look at him with a strange expression. Even if he wanted to die, he didn't have to die in such a way, right? Hearing Tu Ze call out Xiao Chen's name, the youths at the back of the demon clan suddenly raised their heads and looked over. Xiao Chen. Currently, this name was widely known in the demon region. According to the news that came from the Xian family of the Silver Moon Spirit Fox race, this guy actually walked out of the misleading Fog Lake, the mysterious forbidden area that even Emperor Wu couldn't enter. Tu Ze sneered, "Why wouldn't I dare? You even dared to enter the misleading Fog Lake, yet you don't dare to accept this small challenge?" Shui Lingling pulled Xiao Chen back and transmitted her voice to him, "Don't be impulsive. This guy is only good at talking. No one here will take him seriously." The other party was indeed nothing much. At the very least, in Xiao Chen's opinion, there were at least 5 people on the human side who could defeat the other party in a one-on-one fight. Even Xiao Hoju, who had been defeated in a sorry state, would not have ended up like this if he had not made a mistake at the start and did not expect the other party to have a rank 1 sage body. Xiao Chen merely had a rank 1 sage body and 1,000 tons of force. To Xiao Chen, this was nothing. This was a fat sheep that delivered itself to his doorstep. It would be inexcusable not to take advantage of it. First senior sister, don't worry. Xiao Chen smiled gently and raised his head to look at the other party. He asked, how do we bet? Is it still the same as what you said earlier? Seeing that Xiao Chen had taken the bait, Tu Zhe smiled happily and said, naturally, it is the same. The loser has to pay 5,000 black astral coins. Xiao Chen thought for a while before saying, don't you think 5,000 black astral coins is too little? If we are going to play, let's play a little bigger. The loser has to pay 50,000 black astral coins. How about that? 50,000 black astral coins was equivalent to 5 million astral coins. This was a huge sum, enough to buy a high-quality sage-grade secret treasure. Even with so many astral coins, no one here could throw out so many black astral coins without batting an eyelid. The moment Tu Zhe said that, Xiao Chen immediately felt several gazes directed at him. It was not just the fiend race and human cultivators. The youths of the ghost race and corpse race all looked over as well, looking at Xiao Chen like he was a madman. Xiao Chen clearly knew that the other party had a rank 1 sage body and 1,000 tons of force, yet he still dared to bet so much. This was simply too crazy. Only the corpse race's Wang Can could not help twitching his lips. He looked at Tu Zhe with some sympathy. When Xiao Chen saw Tu Zhe remain silent, he smiled casually and said, you do not dare. In that case, forget it. Given your status, you can only rely on words and make a small fuss. Xiao Chen's tone was calm, but his words struck at Tu Zhe's weakness. Tu Zhe smiled coldly and said, I do not dare. This old man has a rank 1 sage body. One punch from me can bring out 1,000 tons of force. Why would I be afraid of a spineless human like you? Scram out here for this old man. This old man will accept this bet. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and floated over to Tu Zhe, not even a gust of wind could be heard. How obedient. This old man called you out, and you came out. Tu Zhe chuckled, and the bones in his entire body crackled like beans being fried. His entire body swelled up once again. Now, Tu Zhe was 2 meters tall and muscular, looking like a small giant. A berserk aura spread out, and a strong wind blew. Xiao Chen's clothes and head of black hair fluttered in the wind. Compared to Tu Zhe, he was like a child facing a strong man. It was extremely uncoordinated. This is the innate talent of Tu Zhe's spirit fiend bloodline, giant strength. After using it, his strength will increase by 20% for a short time, reaching 1,400 tons of force. This Xiao Chen is finished. When the others saw the gigantic Tu Zhe, they recalled that Tu Zhe still had the spirit fiend bloodline. They all inhaled sharply. Die! Tu Zhe shouted and pushed off the ground. He shot forward like a cannonball. The friction between his body and the air gave off a piercing sonic boom. Tu Zhe's gigantic fist carried the power to shatter mountains. He landed on Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's expression remained the same, there were no fluctuations at all. The strong wind from his fist was like a knife, blowing his hair to the back of his head and revealing his delicate face. The firmament body tempering art circulated in his body. 1,500 tons of force surged out like a raging river, gushing endlessly. Using the techniques of the Dragon Claw Fist, Xiao Chen burned his vital qi. When he used his full power, his strength approached 1,500 tons of force. When Tu Zhe's fist was only 1 meter away, Xiao Chen stretched out his right hand and grabbed Tu Zhe's wrist. Bang! Tu Zhe, who was charging over with an overwhelming aura, suddenly stopped. Xiao Chen grabbed his wrist, preventing him from moving forward. After struggling for a while, Tu Zhe could not move at all. He could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Then, he punched at Xiao Chen. Xiaochen smiled coldly and raised his hand. Tu Zhe's body was lifted high into the air. Before Tu Zhe could react, Xiaochen dropped him. Pa! He landed heavily on the ground. The entire process happened in the time it took for a spark to fly. The crowd only saw the burly Tu Zhe with a startling aura charge over. In an instant, Xiaochen lifted him up and flung him to the ground. Xiaochen's close to 1,500 tons of force crushed Tu Zhe's opponent. Then, he flipped Tu Zhe's wrist and swung him again. Tu Zhe's tall body was flung to the ground like a whip. Bang! 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 Xiaochen's hands did not stop moving. He continued to swing Tu Zhe around casually, causing the ground to rumble and shake violently. Everyone was stunned. They had not expected the seemingly skinny Xiaochen to erupt with such horrifying force. In just one exchange, he managed to toy with Tu Zhe in the palm of his hand. Tu Zhe's swollen body had already recovered to its normal size. His face was swollen, and blood flowed from the corner of his lips. Wounds covered his entire body. Xiaochen swung his hand, and Tu Zhe's body flew towards the fiend race with a huge impact. Just as he was about to land heavily, Tu Zhe circulated his fiend essence and twisted his body. Then, he stood on the ground and took a few steps back before he managed to stabilize himself. On the other hand, Xiaochen did not move at all from start to end. A cool breeze blew by. His expression remained the same, not changing at all. The surroundings fell silent. The youths of the fiend race, ghost race, corpse race, and even the humans all looked at Xiaochen in disbelief. On the other hand, a fiend race genius with a rank 1 sage body and the innate talent of a spirit fiend actually lost to Xiaochen in a competition of physical strength. Tu Zhe, a fiend race genius with a rank 1 sage body and the innate talent of a spirit fiend, actually lost to Xiaochen in a competition of physical strength, unable to retaliate at all. Fuck you! Tu Zhe cursed ferociously. His surging fiend essence surged, and his heavenly sage laws danced behind him. Then, he roared ferociously and charged at Xiaochen. Since when did he embarrass himself like this? To think that a bona fide fiend race genius was treated like a sandbag, toyed with casually. The others could not stop him in time. In the blink of an eye, Tu Zhe circulated all the fiend essence in his body and charged over to Xiaochen. His aura was like the wind, boundlessly ferocious. Xiaochen could not help but smile mockingly. A defeat was a defeat. Furthermore, it was not a clean defeat. There was really no need for this Tu Zhe to show him any respect. Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, tenfold combat prowess, deities descending. A divine light entered Xiaochen's body, and his aura soared infinitely. Everything in the world seemed to want to worship him. Xiaochen clashed with Tu Zhe's full power strike without any fear. Bang! A loud sound rang out. Tu Zhe, who had charged over like the wind, went flying back like lightning. He vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood in the air. The strong wind did not stop blowing, and Xiaochen's white robes fluttered. He did not move at all, only giving you one punch. Even if you did not submit, you would still be lucky. What's wrong? Are all the people of the fiend race so shameless? You can't even admit to your defeat? Xiaochen asked indifferently as he watched the others catch Tu Zhe. The person who caught Tu Zhe wore luxurious purple robes embroidered with a peacock spreading its wings. He was handsome and elegant, looking cultured and refined. The purple-robed youth pushed with one hand and casually let Tu Zhe fall. Then, he calmly tossed out a spatial ring and said in a clear voice, "You are really capable to be able to walk out of misleading Fog Lake. I, Kong Yuan, would like to experience your great moves." This is interesting. The top character of the fiend race, the grandson of the Peacock King, is going to make a move. This person seemed to have a great background. Seeing that he was going to make a move, a commotion broke out in the surroundings. Xiaochen caught the spatial ring and scanned it with his spiritual sense. There were 50,000 black astral coins, no more, no less. When he saw the Peacock King's grandson, he squinted and looked at it carefully. Chapter 809. Unexpectedly, the other party had more than 150 heavenly sage laws behind him. His cultivation was even higher than Xiao Chen's. However, the thickness of his heavenly sage laws was not as strong as Xiao Chen's. Before Xiao Chen could answer, a resonant sagely song suddenly came from the sky. A faint golden light shone down from the sky. A golden warship bathed in holy light appeared before everyone's eyes. It was bright and dazzling like the sun. The deity race's people are here. With the deity race's arrival, the door of light would open soon. Clearly, the fight between the Peacock Sovereign's grandson and Xiao Chen would not happen. This was exactly what Xiao Chen wanted. Now that the 5 races were gathered here, several of the strong geniuses of the other races would have to hide themselves. If Xiao Chen fought with Kong Yuan, he would definitely expose some of his trump cards. Under such circumstances, it would be disadvantageous for him. Xiao Chen's figure flashed and returned to the human race's group. In one trip, he had earned 5 million astral coins. Clearly, he had made a great profit on this trip. Only the Golden Lion race's Tengzai had suffered. Since Kong Yuan had helped Xiao Chen fork out the astral coins, it was impossible for it to be free. A golden light flashed, and a group of white-haired deity race youths wearing golden armor appeared behind the deity race Emperor Wu. A careful count revealed that there were 15 deity race youths here, more than half the number of the other races. The 5 Emperor Wu on the stone platform opened their eyes at the same time. They looked at each other before slowly standing up. The white-haired deity race Emperor Wu glanced at the other 4 and said, "Since everyone is here, let's open the seal and enter the heavenly dew divine spring. You will be automatically sent out after 4 hours." The 5 Emperor Wu each took out a holy seal and sent out a rainbow light into the door of light. The seals on the door of light could be seen slowly opening. With every layer of seal that was opened, the color of the door of light dimmed significantly. The process of opening the door of light was extremely slow. The layers of seals seemed endless. The peerless monstrous geniuses of each race were unable to restrain their excitement. Even the ghost race members who had always been as calm as still water began to have heated eyes. The heavenly dew divine spring opened only once every 10,000 years. As long as one did not die prematurely, they would definitely advance to martial emperor within 100 years. It would be a lie to say that no one was tempted. After opening 100 seals, the door of light flickered and disappeared. Hua! With a flash of golden light, the 15 people of the god race flew in first. The warriors of the other races cursed under their breath and followed closely, not wanting to be left behind. As far as the eye could see, it was filled with waves of misty white spirit mist. Taking a breath of it caused one's mind to feel refreshed, and even one's vision became much clearer. Amidst the spiritual fog, Xiao Chen could not see his surroundings clearly. He could only rely on his senses to move higher. After walking for 1,000 meters, the spiritual fog slowly dissipated. A golden pool with a diameter of 500 meters appeared in front of Xiao Chen. The Protoss who had rushed in first had already jumped in. The deity race team formed a large semicircle. A man and a woman stood side by side in the center of the semicircle. They looked like they were of noble status. This is the heavenly dew divine spring. As long as one soaks in it, one's marrow and blood will be cleansed, and one's talent and aptitude will improve. One will be able to advance to martial emperor within 100 years. Several people sighed and jumped in. However, Xiao Chen remained rather calm. It was impossible to advance to martial emperor without doing anything by soaking in the heavenly dew divine spring. Even if one became Emperor Wu, one might not be able to advance to sovereign martial emperor. In this age of geniuses, if one's goal was only to advance to martial emperor, it would be too simple. The sound of splashing water resounded as Xiao Chen jumped into the divine pool. Then, he floated in the area occupied by the humans and quietly soaked in the pool. At first, Xiao Chen did not feel anything. It was like jumping into ordinary clear water. He closed his eyes and carefully observed the pool with his spiritual sense. Only then did he discover something. Motes of light that were hard to see with the naked eye floated in the golden divine spring. These motes of light would not take the initiative to enter a cultivator's body. A cultivator needed to circulate their cultivation technique to absorb these motes of light. From a distance, Shaoqin could see that the deity race cultivators had already discovered this secret. The motes of light formed countless ribbons of light that quickly entered the bodies of the deity race cultivators. The ribbons of light around the two people in the semicircle were the most eye-catching. They could be seen with the naked eye. Beams of divine light flowed from the bottom of the pool and quickly entered the two's bodies. Some people absorbed the motes of light quickly, while others absorbed them slowly. After observing for a while, Shaoqin roughly understood the mysteries behind this. The absorption speed should have something to do with the cultivation technique that the cultivator cultivated. With one glance, Shaoqin could tell that these two experts were of noble status. Their cultivation techniques were definitely better than the others. Among the fiend race cultivators, the grandson of the Peacock King, Kang Yuan, clearly absorbed the motes of light faster than the other fiend race experts. The light he formed was very bright. After understanding the secret behind this, Shaoqin was not in a rush to absorb these motes of light. He continued to probe with his spiritual sense. He felt curious about what was at the bottom of this pool. In the end, when Shaoqin's spiritual sense reached a kilometer down, a mysterious suction force swallowed it up, leaving nothing behind. This startled Shaoqin. This was his first time encountering such a strange thing. Spiritual sense could be blocked by barriers or destroyed by strong energy. However, Shaoqin had never encountered a situation where spiritual sense could be swallowed up. If it could even swallow up spiritual sense, what else could it not swallow up? Shaoqin tested it out. He casually took out an astral coin and tossed it down. In the end, it reached a kilometer down before it was slowly swallowed up into nothing. The people in the pool were all anxiously absorbing the motes of light in the divine spring. They were not as idle as Shaoqin. Hence, the others did not discover this secret. Shaking his head, Shaoqin stopped thinking about this problem. He sat cross-legged in the water and revealed half his body. Then, he started to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation to absorb the motes of light. Hu Qi. The moment the purple thunder divine incantation circulated, the drifting motes of light in the divine spring quickly gathered into dazzling beams of light and headed for Shaoqin's body. Each beam of light was the size of an infant's arm. The dazzling light was even more dazzling than the two deity race experts. When the beams of light entered Shaoqin's body, he gave off a faint glow, looking very eye-catching among the large group of people. Even the two deity race experts only had a faint glow on the surface of their skin. However, Shaoqin directly gave off a glow. Such a strange movement would attract the attention of the others. They all looked over, clearly astonished. What exactly is the grade of this fellow's cultivation technique? The man and woman from the God clan, who were surrounded in the middle, also looked over. They seemed quite puzzled. Shaoqin closed his eyes, not noticing his strange movement. He was currently happily sensing the changes that the motes of light brought to his body. This kind of change was not directly reflected in his cultivation. Instead, it was on a deeper level. Shaoqin's mind became increasingly clearer. He slowly gained a sense of some of the problems that he could not figure out in the past. He could also solve some of the difficult problems he encountered in the martial Tao without a teacher. This was a sign that his comprehension ability was slowly strengthening. Furthermore, this was not a temporary increase. Even after he left the divine spring, it would still exist. Shaoqin's aptitude was also slowly changing. He could feel that the amount of spiritual energy he absorbed in his body was slowly increasing. Normally, talent referred to comprehension ability and aptitude. The former could allow one to quickly comprehend all sorts of martial techniques, even create one's own. The latter could increase a cultivator's cultivation speed. For example, if a cultivator with a strong aptitude cultivated a heaven-ranked cultivation technique, one day of cultivation would be equivalent to several days of cultivation for someone with a weaker aptitude. Some might even be able to achieve 10 days of cultivation for someone with a stronger aptitude. Xiao Chen's comprehension ability was not bad, it could even be said to be very high. However, his aptitude was slightly weaker. His cultivation speed could not compare to those demonic geniuses. However, after this, the situation would change completely. Xiao Chen could not contain the joy in his heart. The speed at which he circulated the purple thunder divine incantation increased significantly. The number of strands of light in the divine spring increased as well. When the others saw this scene, they all cursed in their hearts. They all closed their eyes and did their best to absorb the strands of light. This was especially so for the deity race man and woman. Their bodies actually started to give off a glow as well, slightly weaker than Xiao Chen's. The entire place fell silent. Everyone focused on absorbing the strands of light in the divine spring. They wanted to raise their aptitude and comprehension ability as much as possible in this limited time. No one noticed that the mysterious swordsman, Duan Yi, silently opened his eyes. He revealed a smile as he looked around. Then, his body slowly sank. Duan Yi sank lower and lower. In the blink of an eye, he had already sunk a kilometer. A suction force surged over. Clearly, Duan Yi knew how powerful that suction force was. After probing it cautiously, Duan Yi took out a black jade pendant and placed it in his mouth. His body slowly turned illusory as he passed through the suction force and continued sinking. The cultivators, who were all absorbed in absorbing the strands of light, did not notice such a scene, not even Xiao Chen. As time slowly went by, the crowd slowly discovered something else. The strands of light in the divine spring were not limitless. The deity races group was the first to realize the consequences. They had the most people and were also the strongest. Within the circumscribed area, the light particles were the first to be completely absorbed. The pool water that was originally glistening with golden light became light and transparent, no different from ordinary pool water. This formed a sharp contrast with the glistening divine spring elsewhere. The deity race man in the middle looked around and said expressionlessly, "Do it. Chase them away." The two noble deity race cultivators did not move. The other 13 deity race cultivators slowly rose from the water and stood on the ripples. The white-haired man, who was sitting cross-legged, scanned the surroundings and uttered 2 words, "The demon race." The 13 deity race geniuses did not say a word. Their auras started to accumulate as they drew the golden swords at their waists. Then, they each sent out a strand of golden sword chi towards the fiend race group. Chapter 8:10. Sagely songs rang out in the surroundings. The resonant sagely songs merged the 13 strands of golden sword chi, forming a huge sword chi with countless divine scripts circling it. The huge sword chi had a startling aura. When it flew over, it seemed like it could even shatter space. The divine scripts circling the sword chi also made the forcefully merged sword chi incredibly stable. The fiend race cultivators all leaped into the air, not daring to clash head-on with the sword chi formed by the 13 people. Any one of these 13 deity race cultivators had a 60% chance of victory in a one-on-one fight. Now that they worked together, how could they dare to clash head-on? Only the peacock sovereign's grandson, Kong Yuan, showed an enraged expression. He did not soar into the air. The heavenly sage laws behind him changed, turning into peacock feathers that were 100 meters long. The purple feathers flickered with a crystalline purple light, looking like a peacock spreading its tail, looking boundlessly beautiful. Kong Yuan stretched out his hand, and the resonant cry of a peacock resounded. Space trembled, and the divine scripts on the huge sword chi were affected, starting to shatter inch by inch. Kong Yuan pushed his palm forward, and the huge peacock screen behind him gave off a bright light, looking crystalline and translucent. The huge sword chi with the broken divine scripts shattered with one palm strike. The peacock screen behind him did not scatter. Kong Yuan showed a sullen expression as he looked at the white-haired man and said, "Di Wuk, what is the meaning of this? Are you trying to kill us all?" The white-haired man, Di Wuk, appeared somewhat surprised. He said, "Not bad. it looks like your cultivation has already reached peak consummation half-stage. You can stay. The other fiend race cultivators hovering in the air were not convinced. Tu Zhe's temper was the most explosive. He cursed, "Screw you. Diwuk, you are just a divine son now. Do you really think you are a powerful divine monarch?" After Tu Zhe spoke, he wanted to charge back down. Diwuk raised his head slightly and looked around coldly. His strong mental energy locked onto Tu Zhe. When Tu Zhe felt a vast energy surround him, his arrogant attitude immediately faltered. He stopped in the air, not daring to move rashly. "You can stay if you want. You just have to receive the combined attack of 13 of my race's warriors." Tu Zhe was infuriated. If he fought alone, he might be able to defeat one of them if he revealed his demon form. Of course, it was just a possibility. How could he possibly withstand the combined attack of 13 celestial race geniuses? His temper flared up all of a sudden. However, when he saw the look in Diwuk's eyes, he immediately gave up, feeling extremely depressed. The demon race cultivators were indignant and shouted that they would fight this group of people to the death. Some of them also looked to Kong Yuan for help. Kong Yuan deliberately ignored them. He knew better than anyone that the 13 terrifying people in front of him were not a problem at all. The real difficulty was the white-haired man and the white-haired woman who had yet to make a move. One was the divine son and the other was the divine daughter. Their names had already shaken the entire Kunlun realm. Even he couldn't protect himself, and the entire demon race had to be chased out. Since Diwuk didn't kill them all and left him a seat, he naturally wouldn't say anything else. "Diwuk, you better keep your word. I'll take this move." The little heavenly monkey Feng suddenly said to Diwuk. "Naturally, I will keep my word. When have I, Diwuk, not kept my word?" Diwuk revealed a satisfied expression. As long as someone accepted this condition, it would be fine. He did not want to see a life and death struggle. As long as one person accepted, the fiend race's situation would be set. Before the other fiend race cultivators' eyes, the little heavenly monkey forcefully received this sword strike, surpassing their expectations. Although the little heavenly monkey vomited a mouthful of blood in a sorry state, it was not severely injured, only slightly. A light flickered in the depths of Diwuk's eyes. With one glance, he figured out what was going on. This little heavenly monkey was pretty strong. However, he relied on a king-grade secret treasure in his body to receive this sword strike. However, Xiaoqin did not point it out. He just nodded slightly to indicate that he could stay. The other fiend race cultivators did not know what was going on. 3 more people tried to receive it forcefully. In the end, they were severely injured and vomited blood. Some of the more serious ones nearly got chopped in half at the waist. The defensive sage-grade secret treasures on them were not of much use. Such a result made the others suck in a deep breath of cold air. No one dared to say anything more. In the end, only 2 people of the fiend race remained, the Peacock King's grandson, Kong Yuan, and the little heavenly monkey, Feng. Naturally, such a commotion attracted the cultivators of the other 3 races. Xiaoqin did not stop cultivating. However, with his spiritual sense outside, he could see everything like the back of his hand. Xiaoqin had long heard of the deity race's strength. Now that he saw it for himself, he finally understood. That Diwuk did not move at all. With a wave of his hand, he chased away the 8 fiend race genius cultivators. While Xiaoqin looked decisive and tyrannical, the stratagem he used was also amazing. If the fiend race did not deal with the fiend race properly and all of them counterattacked, the geniuses of the other races would not be so easy to deal with. They would work together to deal with Xiaoqin. Clearly, this was not the result that Xiaoqin wanted. The red-dressed girl from the ghost race, whom Xiaoqin had met once, stretched out her hand and pulled all the cultivators of her race behind her. Her snow-white cheeks were cold and lifeless. She was still as beautiful as before, so beautiful that it could move one's soul. Diwuk, what exactly are you trying to do? The red-dressed girl's cold, lifeless voice resounded. Diwok looked like a work of the gods. His handsome face did not change at all. He said, I already made it very clear what I want to do. The essence of the heavenly dew divine spring in this pool is clearly limited. It is clearly abnormal for so many people to absorb such a limited resource. Naturally, I have to chase some people away. The red-dressed girl's eyes wandered around. Then, she said, then, you mean that everyone has to receive a sword strike from the 13 of you before they can stay? Diwok raised his head and smiled coldly. The light in his eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. He said, I did not say that to you, Ching Cheng. I said that to the fiend race. Do you think that I do not understand the martial techniques of your ghost race and corpse race? The Een soldier clone and the heavenly corpse clone can block a fatal strike for you. Even with your two races combined, you can only leave two people for me. At the end, Diwok's tone was so cold that there was no sign of life. Your two races both cultivate the death Tao. There is no death energy in the heavenly dew divine spring for you to use. If you want to fight, feel free to do so. I will not even give you 2 spots. Diwok's tone was extremely tyrannical. Furthermore, he immediately poked at the weakness of the two races. This caused the powerful geniuses of the two races to feel extremely resentful, but they did not dare to vent it out. This person was very domineering. Furthermore, he was not a domineering person who was all brawn and no brains. Normally, such people were the scariest. The ghost race and corpse race gathered and discussed for a while. In the end, they decided to give up, leaving behind Wang Can and the red-dressed girl, Ching Cheng. After dealing with the ghost race and corpse race, Diwok's gaze finally landed on the final group, the humans. The weaker human cultivators could not help but worry. Diwok easily dealt with the fiend race, ghost race, and corpse race. In the end, he faced the humans alone, putting a lot of pressure on them. Diwok glanced at the nervous humans and smiled coldly to himself. Then, like a sovereign, he said, aside from Yen Shirsan and the sons of the 3 holy masters, the rest of you can scram. When the 3 holy masters heard this, they could not help but release their bated breath. In the end, this Diwok still feared the 3 of them and did not dare to act rashly. When Shui Lingling saw the expressions of the 3 holy masters, she felt speechless. The corpse race and ghost race were limited by their environment and did not dare to fight to the death. The overall strength of the fiend race was the weakest. Furthermore, they had their own camps. Hence, Diwok did not care about them at all. The humans did not face any restrictions here. Instead, their overall strength was the strongest. As long as the 3 holy masters made a call, they would be able to delay the deity race for 4 hours. Even if they could not defeat the deity race's people, they would be able to delay them for 4 hours, preventing the deity race from absorbing the divine spring's essence peacefully. Diwok would definitely hold back. However, at this moment, Diwok's casual words immediately shattered the 3 holy masters' fighting spirit. Even if the others did not want to leave, they had to. Just as the others felt aggrieved and depressed, Yen Shirsan suddenly stood up. His lips curled up in a mocking smile. With a flip of his hand, the heavenly ice sword appeared in his grasp. Then, he smiled coldly and said, "It is rare for the divine son to think so highly of this Yen. However, it is not up to you to decide whether I, Yen Shirsan, stay or go." After Yen Shirsan spoke, he instantly drew the heavenly ice sword. The sword moved by 1 centimeter, and a black killing chi surged out like a berserk dragon storm. In an instant, more than half of the boundless vitality in the divine spring was slashed away by this half-inch sword chi of slaughter. When Yen Shirsan drew his sword, the black sword light formed an unparalleled beam of light that swept out. The 1-meter-long heavenly ice sword flickered with a cold light. The world behind Yen Shirsan immediately turned dark, devoid of life force. The rock of origin in the deep abyss of the heavenly dew divine spring contained a nearly inextinguishable life force. However, Yen Shirsan's sword strike temporarily cut off all the life force. Even the golden spring water had become somewhat dim, as if it had lost its vitality. The unparalleled sword light quickly elongated. The black sword light was dense and dense, containing the will of massacre. Everywhere the beam of light passed, everything was destroyed. The sky slowly darkened. The surrounding cultivators were all startled. Unexpectedly, Yen Shisan's killing sword Dao combined with the heavenly ice sword could bring out such strong might. Only Di Wux's expression changed slightly. It was like he had expected this. He said softly, "Retreat." Light appeared under the feet of the 13 deity race cultivators preparing to fight. Their figures flashed as they quickly retreated. The white-haired girl beside Di Wux leaped into the air and appeared in front in a flash. A golden light flickered on her forehead, and countless illusory figures appeared behind her. They knelt on the ground and chanted all sorts of praises. A beam of holy light descended from the sky and enveloped the white-haired woman. It made her seem otherworldly, like a goddess. Holy radiant halberd. The white-haired girl stretched out her hand, and the mental energy in her sea of consciousness surged out. The mental energy formed a holy halberd containing the will of radiance. Then, it clashed with the black sword light that Yen Shisan sent out. Boom! The will of radiance and the will of massacre quickly clashed at this moment. 100-meter-long pillar of golden water immediately erupted from the heavenly dew divine spring. Chapter 8:11. The golden holy halberd slowly faded away. However, it managed to block Yen Shisan's black sword light with an unparalleled aura. When all the mysterious phenomena vanished, Di Wux said calmly, "Yen Shisan, your killing sword Dao has not reached consummation yet. If you cannot overcome your mental state, it will be futile no matter how much trouble you cause." Yen Shisan glanced at the white-haired girl in front and smiled speechlessly. "Di Wux, you are really interesting. Why do you not dare to have a proper fight with me? You know that I never kill women, so you dare to be so fearless?" A boundless light flickered in the depths of Di Wux's eyes, giving off an unfathomable feeling. He raised his head and said, "Since I already know your weakness, why do I need to do this? We will fight sooner or later. However, now is not the time. Your killing sword Dao has not reached consummation yet. Your compatibility with the heavenly ice sword has only just begun. Ask yourself if you are confident of fighting me at full power." The boundless light in Di Wux's deep eyes seemed to be able to grasp everyone's hearts as he spoke. Shao Qin possessed unfathomable strength. Even though he had not made a move from the start to the end, everyone felt an unprecedented pressure. The light on the girl in front of Yen Shisan flickered continuously. A pure and holy aura spread out. A golden light flickered on Shao Chen's forehead as the will of light spread out. Ripples appeared in the pool water under her feet. The long divine halberd circled around her, ready to block Yen Shisan at any time. Yen Shisan sheathed his sword and gently drifted away, returning to where he was earlier. Then, he sat cross-legged in the pool water and continued absorbing the essence of the heavenly dew divine spring, ignoring everything else. The other human cultivators could not help exchanging glances. Even Yen Shisan was told to retreat by Di Wux. Did they still have a chance? Of the 3,000 great realms, the deity race controlled 1,000 great realms, more than half of the other races. After the fall of the Qing Emperor, the deity race had developed to its peak once more in the past 10,000 years. This was a strong race from the outer realm. Once again, they revealed their ambition. They had been suppressing the other races in the Kunlun realm for a long time. And Juanxi and the others were not nobodies. They had long heard of Di Wux's name. This peerless genius of the divine race was the strongest divine son in the history of the Thousand Deities sect. Among the younger generation of the god race, he had unparalleled prestige. He was the well-deserved leader of the younger generation that everyone willingly submitted to. Those 13 deity clan warriors were all genius warriors of the deity clan, but in front of Di Wux, they did not have the slightest bit of unwillingness. Such a scene was rarely seen in the other races. Take the human race as an example. The three holy scions had very high prestige, but they were still far from being able to convince Juanxi, Shui Lingling, and the others wholeheartedly. Now that Diwuk wanted to chase them away, they really didn't know what to do. Diwuk glanced at them and said, "Still not leaving? Time is limited. Don't test my patience." Bai Wuxiu looked coldly at Diwuk. Then, he clenched his teeth and was the first to leave. And Juanxi shook his head and left helplessly as well. Soon, aside from the three holy masters and Yan Shisan, only Shao Chen and Shui Lingling remained. Shui Lingling waved her hand, and the purple bow appeared in her left hand. A fiery red arrow that she had never used before appeared in her right hand, looking very beautiful. Diwuk's expression changed slightly. He said, "Shui Lingling, are you planning to oppose me?" Shui Lingling smiled gently and said, "The deity race is very incredible. In the past few years, I have killed at least 500 deity race cultivators, if not 1,000. I do not mind dying in blood again." "Kill." Diwuk said coldly and did not say anything else. The 13 deity race martialists took a step forward in unison. Their golden swords were unsheathed once again, and the huge sword chi reformed. The resonant sagely song made the divine scripts on the huge sword chi immortal and indestructible. As it shot forward, the scattered sword chi split the lake water below in half. Shui Lingling's face sank. She drew back the bowstring, and the will of fire started to soar. A clump of profound yang true flame encased her entire body. "First senior sister, let me do it." Shao Chen, who had kept his eyes closed and gave off a faint glow, not willing to waste any time cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes and said indifferently. When Shao Chen saw the huge golden sword chi flying over, he quickly circulated the dragon tone art in his body. The blue dragon martial spirit in his dantian leaped out. It quickly circulated in his chest and merged with Shao Chen's quintessence, forming an azure-colored dragon image that swam quickly in his chest. A vast energy slowly accumulated. Shao Chen felt like his chest would explode at any moment. His sea of consciousness surged, and his mental energy drained continuously. Shao Chen roared ferociously at the huge golden sword chi flying over. The surging dragon roar contained Shao Chen's mental energy. It formed a whirlpool and immediately spread out. Bang! 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 Sound waves surged out and soared up from the water, forming a screen of water. The golden sword chi was the first to be hit. The divine scripts formed by mental energy immediately shattered. Hu chi! Hu chi! The huge sword chi slowly dissipated. By the time it reached Shao Chen and Shui Lingling, it had already vanished without a trace, no longer existing. With one roar, the huge sword chi that gave all the cultivators of the various races a headache was easily shattered. The dragon roar still lingered in the air, giving the 13 deity race cultivators a headache. They could not help but take a few steps back. Dragon tone art. The expressions of all the deity race cultivators changed. They all looked at Shao Chen incredulously, horror in their eyes. The dragon tone art was a martial technique that the Qing Emperor personally created back then. It had dealt a heavy blow to the deity race. Even after 10,000 years, the deity race had not forgotten it. It was because this martial technique had dealt a fatal blow to the deity race back then. It could be said that this martial technique was the reason why the deity race at their peak did not dare to act rashly before the Dragon's Gate led by the Qing Emperor. The usually calm Diwuk's expression also sank. He said, "Kill him." 3 of the 13 deity race cultivators leaped out first. They roared ferociously, and boundless sagely songs resounded. Each of them executed a distant legend at Shao Chen. Shao Chen smiled coldly and leaped into the air. A resonant sagely song rang out in the surroundings as well. However, this song was for Shao Chen's own legend. Bang! The fist lights clashed, and the 3 collapsed on contact. They vomited a mouthful of blood as they were sent flying miserably by Shao Chen's distant legend. How can this be? The deity race martial technique that he executed is actually even stronger than the deity race. When the surrounding cultivators saw this scene, they were all startled, not knowing what was going on. Diwook raised his eyebrows. This white-robed cultivator had surpassed his expectations again today. Suddenly, Diwook, who had been sitting cross-legged, stood up silently. His white hair fluttered without any wind, slowly turning golden. A strong aura containing divine might spread out. The water below spun uncontrollably, forming a horrifying whirlpool. Unexpectedly, Diwook decided to personally make a move. Everyone's expressions could not help but turn grave. In the past few years, Diwook rarely made a move. However, every time he made a move, his opponent ended up in a miserable state without exception. Diwook's fame in the Kunlun realm did not come from words alone. In reality, this was a world where strength reigned supreme and geniuses came forth in large numbers. Without truly strong strength, who would take the initiative to withdraw with just a few words from Diwook? Rumble. Just at this moment, the entire Kunlun mountain started shaking intensely. Sounds even more intense than thunder resounded in the sky. Space trembled, and the ground trembled. Cracks appeared in the ground. The cultivators of the various races hovering in the air all landed heavily on the ground, unable to resist at all. Clearly, such a mysterious phenomenon was not something that Diwook could do. Even Grandmaster-level martial sages could not do so. What's going on? Everyone could not understand what was going on. They all muttered to themselves in horror. Xiao Chen's heart skipped a beat as he looked around. Indeed, the mysterious swordsman Duan Yi was nowhere to be found. The tremors did not last long. However, the geniuses of the various races did not know how large the tremors were. The Tianwu domain, the Fiend domain, the Ghost domain, the Deity domain, and the Corpse domain, the entire Kunlun continent, all shook at the same time. Ancient buildings collapsed, mountains crumbled, and rivers flowed. The chaotic demonic sea, thousands of kilometers away, had huge waves, tsunamis, and islands bobbed up and down. After crossing the barrier of the sky, several stars in the boundless starry heavens left their original orbits and crashed into each other, giving off horrifying explosions in the universe and forming horrifying black holes. In a short moment, the Kunlun continent and the connected starry heavens suffered a huge disaster. Oh no! Someone touched the Rock of Origin. Halfway up the main peak of the Kunlun realm, the 5 martial emperors outside the Door of Light all opened their eyes in extreme shock. The green-robed old man from the Bushin Palace said, "It looks like the geniuses of the various races that just entered were infiltrated by spies." That's impossible, right? The grand engulfing formation under the deity spring can even devour Emperor Wu into dust. Given the 5 of us, aside from the 2 deity race experts, none of the 50 people that just entered advanced to martial sage, the dark-skinned old man from the ghost race said in disbelief. The white-haired deity race Emperor Wu said sullenly, "Although the grand engulfing formation can swallow up everything in the world, there might be some mysterious item that can counter it. Let's open the seal again and go in to take a look." The 5 Emperor Wu did not panic. Firstly, they were very confident in the grand engulfing formation. They believed that the bold person had already been swallowed up until not even his flesh remained. Secondly, this was the Kunlun Mountain, a place where experts were as common as clouds. They would not even fear a demon monarch. How could they fear someone who had not even advanced to martial sage? The 5 took out their holy seals again and started to open the seal, layer by layer. A man and a woman hid in a spatial tear in the sky for thousands of kilometers around the Kunlun mountain. When they saw the 5 reopening the seal, they could not help smiling. Chapter 8:12. If they did not personally open these 100-odd seals, no demon monarch would be able to escape from them. Ha! It is as I guessed. I expected this long ago. Let's wait for him to come out. Are you ready for your plane traveling spell? I prepared it long ago. I'm just waiting for him to come out. The shaking of the heavenly spring had already stopped. However, everyone was still bewildered. They could not understand what was going on, not knowing what was going on. Gurgle. Gurgle. Long streams of water bubbles surged up in the center of the pool, attracting everyone's attention. The speed at which the bubbles appeared increased. Eventually, it became frighteningly fast. Everyone's faces sank as they leaped out of the water and hovered in the air, silently circulating their quintessence. Bang! A pillar of water soared into the air. At the top of the pillar was a figure in a sorry state, tumbling through the air. The force of the pillar of water was immense. After this person was tossed high into the air, he quickly fell back into the water, kicking up large golden waves. Shao Chen looked carefully. This person's attire was that of the mysterious swordsman, Duan Yi, whom he had noticed long ago. Duan Yi's left hand was tightly clenched, like he was holding something incredible. Although Duan Yi could not see it clearly, the light coming from between his fingers and the strength of his clenched fist made it clear with one look that this was not an ordinary item. When Shao Chen saw this person's face, his pupils could not help but constrict. He exclaimed in shock, "Chu Chaoyun." In the pool, Chu Chaoyun touched his face and revealed an expression of understanding. He smiled and said, "I nearly forgot." After swallowing the void jade pendant, the disguise lost its effect. "Brother Shao Chen, it has been a long time." There were not many things in the world that could truly shock Shao Chen. Coincidentally, meeting Chu Chaoyun here was definitely one of them. It had already been more than 2 years since the final battle of the Five-Nation Youth Competition, but Shao Chen had not met Chu Chaoyun. This was the opponent that had left the deepest impression on Shao Chen in the Sky Dome realm. Shao Chen had thought that he would not be able to meet Chu Chaoyun again on the path of cultivation. However, the fortuitous encounters of life were always filled with coincidences. Shao Chen had not expected to run into Shao Chen at the Kunlun Mountain Divine Spring in the Kunlun realm. However, at this moment, Chu Chaoyun clearly didn't seem to have come in through the normal way. The strange commotion just now definitely had something to do with him. Di Wuk looked around and saw the mysterious object in Chu Chaoyun's left hand. His heart skipped a beat, and he said coldly, "Take out the thing in your hand. I can feel the aura of the deep abyss demonic world from your body." "How did you sneak in?" Chu Chaoyun smiled gently and said unhurriedly, "Haha, your nose is pretty sharp, about the same as my dog's." Di Wuk's face sank, but his eyes remained calm. Ignoring Chu Chaoyun's sarcasm, he said, "This person is definitely a spy of the demon race. He must have an ulterior motive for sneaking into the heavenly spring. Capture him." The 13 deity race genius cultivators shouted, and their bodies gave off a bright light. Strands of golden heavenly sage laws danced around behind them. Together, they looked like a boundless golden sea. A nation of deities rose and fell above the sea. A boundless golden light shone out from the nation. Auspicious yet magical songs rang out endlessly like hymns. The 13 deity race geniuses were like divine soldiers and generals. They all circulated their vast mental energy and combined it with the strength of their physical bodies, sending out deity race martial techniques surging with golden light. Nation of deities, eternal spear. Nation of deities, glorious shield. Nation of deities, glorious shield. Deities nation, holy spear. This seemed to be a combination martial technique. It combined the heavenly sage laws to form the mysterious phenomenon of the divine kingdom. Then, it could be unleashed individually. While they looked scattered, they had a common nation, linking their auras together. When Shao Chen saw this, he entered deep thought. The deity race's martial techniques were truly an eye-opener. It looked like there was a reason why they could sweep through the place for so many years. However, there was no panic in Chu Chaoyun's eyes. He looked as calm and collected as before, like he had a way to deal with it even if the sky collapsed. What an interesting martial technique. However, it is not enough to stop me. A white sword appeared in Shao Chen's right hand. Ancient talisman scripts were carved on the sword. Chu Chaoyun's left eye lit up with a golden light. His right eye was pitch black like ink. Unexpectedly, he comprehended the will of light and the will of darkness at the same time. The bright multicolored light behind Shao Chen quickly merged with the boundless black qi, forming an aura of primal chaos at the beginning of the world. He merged the will of light and the will of darkness. Someone among the cultivators hovering in the air exclaimed. Light and darkness were natural opposites. It was already inconceivable that Xiao Qin could comprehend these two wills at the same time. Unexpectedly, he even merged them. How heaven-defying was this? Everlasting Sword Dao's first move, Light of Origin. Chu Chaoyun shouted and flicked his wrist, thrusting his sword forward. Immediately, the sword lit up with a gentle light. Then, it merged and shot at the martial technique that the 13 deity race cultivators executed together. The light was not gentle. However, it seemed to be compatible with some kind of supreme great Tao. Everywhere the light passed, it seemed like everything returned to its original state. The martial techniques that the 13 deity race cultivators sent out silently broke down one by one. A light swept out, and the protective divine lights on their bodies vanished. The heavenly sage laws behind Xiao Qin formed a sea, kicking up huge waves. The divine nation bobbed up and down like a small boat in the waves, looking like it would collapse at any moment. Diwuk's expression turned completely grave. The mysterious phenomenon of the divine nation contained the mental origins of the 13 deity race cultivators. If it shattered, the foundations of their cultivations would be severely injured. The divine nation is indestructible, indestructible, and indestructible. Diwuk pointed, and a huge image of a deity descended from the sky. Then, he raised his arm at the same time as Diwuk. Then, he sent out a beam of holy light into the divine nation. Only then did the golden sea stabilize. The tottering nation rose up once more, radiating a bright holy light. The 13 deity race cultivators also glowed with glory as they charged over again. The illusionary figure of the deity possessed a boundless godly aura. The moment it descended, everyone present could feel a tremendous pressure invading their sea of consciousness. It was like hypnosis, speaking of the glory and invincible radiance of the deity. It made everyone feel like prostrating themselves on the ground and kowtowing 9 times. This startled Xiao Qin. Could the master of this image really be a deity? Ao Jiao, who was in the immortal spirit ring, smiled and said, "What nonsense deity! It is just the deity race's Emperor Wu. He calls himself a deity to trick ordinary people into giving up their faith and becoming his slaves." Back then, the Thunder King chopped down countless of such things. Seeing the 13 deity race cultivators charging over again, Chu Chaoyun shook his sword and smiled faintly. "You still want to come? Unfortunately, I do not have much time left to play with you all. Let's settle this in one go." Chu Chaoyun shouted, and light and darkness merged behind him, forming an indistinct chaotic world. That place seemed to be the origin of all things, yet it also seemed like the end of all things. Light and darkness struggled against each other, resonating with each other. Everlasting Sword Dao's second move, Life Without End. Strands of sword light containing boundless life force flowed on the ancient sword. Chu Chaoyun's body extinguished the light and darkness in the air, appearing ethereal and formless. The 13 deity race cultivators, who had just regained their morale, all executed their heaven-ranked martial techniques, trying to block this sword light. In the end, they were shocked to discover that the profoundness and technique of this sword light were vastly different from ordinary martial techniques. The moment the weapons in their hands came into contact with that sword light, the might of the martial techniques they were about to execute skyrocketed. Soon, the horrifying energy it contained scared the 13 deity race cultivators pale. The might of the martial techniques they were about to execute had increased tenfold. However, they could not unleash them. If this continued, it would be a disaster if it exploded. Even the number of Divine Kingdom statues in the Golden Sea behind them started to soar uncontrollably. Eventually, they became as dazzling as the blazing sun, no one dared to look at them directly. Diwuk frowned and formed hand seals with both hands. Another holy light struck the number of Divine Kingdom statues. The Golden Nation immediately broke apart, turning into 13 beams of light that entered the deity race cultivators' seas of consciousness. Chu Chaoyun felt somewhat disappointed. If Diwuk had been slightly slower, he would have been able to detonate the entire Divine Kingdom. Then, he would have been able to settle this once and for all. It looked like this Diwok's judgment and reaction speed were extraordinary. This was a problem. Xiaochen released 2 fingers from his left hand, which held the mysterious item, and quickly tapped the ancient sword. Then, he quickly retracted it. Bang! 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 13 intense explosions resounded in succession. The 13 deity race cultivators, who were just about to charge over, vomited blood and flew back. When they landed, they coughed miserably. Every time these deity race cultivators coughed, they felt an intense pain in their chests. The golden armor they wore also vanished. Their faces were blasted beyond recognition, riddled with wounds. It was a tragic sight to behold. This was the first time the strong deity race suffered such a severe blow. When the geniuses of the other races saw this mysterious Chu Chaoyun, they all felt fear. Diwok's expression did not change. A light flickered in the depths of his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, Xiaochen said, "He is holding a small piece of the Rock of Origin." Right after Xiaochen said that, everyone's expressions changed. The Rock of Origin. The legendary Rock of Origin. Unexpectedly, this person snatched away a small piece. Let's attack together. A small piece of the Rock of Origin is enough for all of us to split evenly. Diwok leaped up gently and did not say anything more. He took the initiative to charge at Chu Chaoyun. As he flew, a holy light descended from the sky, encasing him. Chu Chaoyun swung his sword in reverse and sent out another boundless life. However, Diwok's eyes flickered as he formed hand seals. The divine light and aura on Xiaochen's body all scattered silently. Suddenly, he became an ordinary person who did not know any martial techniques. Chapter 8:13. Diwok allowed that strange sword light to strike him. In the end, that sword light was like an igniter. A blazing flame immediately rose from Diwok's body. His aura instantly soared to the clouds. Xiaochen formed a finger seal, and his sea of consciousness surged. Borrowing this aura, he accumulated his mental energy. A 7-colored pagoda appeared above Chu Chaoyun's head. The pagoda shot down a beam of divine light, trapping Chu Chaoyun within it. Chu Chaoyun swung his sword a few times, but the light screen did not move at all. It was like it was trapped. Strange, right? Why am I fine? The wills of light and darkness are not so easy to merge. Your so-called boundless sword Tao is full of flaws in my eyes. Today, you are destined to die here. After sending out a 7-colored pagoda, Diwok stood in the air and said coldly. Chu Chaoyun smiled faintly and said, "The state of primal chaos is indeed not perfect. However, the endless life is not as simple as you think. Do you think that by temporarily turning yourself into a mortal body, you can avoid it?" Diwok's expression changed slightly. Before he could react, there was an explosion in his sea of consciousness. He retreated a few steps, and his complexion paled. Chu Chaoyun took advantage of this opportunity and swung his sword horizontally. The 7-colored pagoda immediately shattered, turning into motes of light that scattered in all directions. However, just as the pagoda was broken, the cultivators of the other races charged over. There was no other reason. As long as he had the Rock of Origin, he had to stay. Furthermore, Diwok had said that this person's state of primal chaos was not perfect. It was not as invincible as he appeared to be. Shui Lingling gently floated over to Xiaochen's side. She said, "Don't be in a rush to make a move. Be careful of falling into Diwok's trap." Xiaochen tilted his head and glanced at Shui Lingling, who was as delicate as gentle water. "What do you mean?" Shui Lingling looked at Diwok unhappily. She said, "This fellow knew from the start that person had the Rock of Origin. However, he did not say anything. He clearly wants to monopolize the Rock of Origin. After seeing that this person is harder to deal with, he purposely leaked the news of the Rock of Origin. He even exposed this person's weakness. He clearly wants to use others to exhaust this person's strength." Shui Lingling's thoughts were indeed meticulous. However, the trick was more complicated than she thought. first senior sister is right. Earlier, Di-wook purposely injured himself, wanting to take advantage of the situation at the last moment. However, I believe that this time, his cleverness will backfire. Junior brother Xiao Chen, Shui Lingling said curiously. Lingling smiled mysteriously. Junior brother, Xiao Chen smiled mysteriously and said, just wait and see. All the cultivators who came here were demonic geniuses who comprehended wills. As long as they did not get struck by Chu Chaoyun's life and death art, it would be very difficult for them to fall. Seeing that Chu Chaoyun was at a disadvantage, some of the hesitant cultivators joined in, afraid that when the Rock of Origin was split, they would not get a share. Aside from Shui Lingling, Yan Shisan, Ying Qiong, and Xiao Chen, the geniuses of the other races all joined in. All sorts of lights flashed in the sky. Fiend race martial techniques, ghost race martial techniques, corpse race martial techniques, and human race martial techniques all appeared. It was hard to imagine that the strongest of the Kunlun realm's younger generation all gathered together to deal with one person. Strangely, the first to make a move, Di-wook, appeared pale and weak. Instead, he stopped at the periphery of the battlefield. Bang! Surrounded by so many geniuses, Chu Chaoyun finally revealed an opening. The Fiend Race's Tuze landed a palm strike on Chu Chaoyun's chest, and a huge force burst out. This strike knocked Chu Chaoyun back a kilometer. His body tumbled in the air, and blood leaked out of a corner of his lips. Tuze laughed loudly and quickly chased after Chu Chaoyun. He said, "Screw you. Weren't you very awesome? This palm strike of this young master will break at least 3 of your ribs." Tuze moved very quickly, taking the initiative. He left the others in the dust. It looked like he was about to catch up to Chu Chaoyun and snatch the Rock of Origin. He could not help but be in a good mood. Bang! Tuze seemed to have crashed into something in the air. Furthermore, because he was moving too fast, the impact was not light. Tuze's nose even caved in. Extreme joy turned to sorrow, causing him to cry out in pain. Many thanks for brother Tuze's palm strike. Di-wook's voice rang out in the distance. His face was glowing, and he seemed to be in high spirits. He did not look injured at all. However, the white-haired girl, who had been missing all this while, suddenly blocked the group's path. The divine halberd in her hand turned into an invisible wall, blocking everyone's path. The force that Tuze used to crash into the wall was extremely horrifying. However, this invisible wall did not budge at all. One could easily imagine how tough it was. No one would be able to break through it for a while. As they looked at Di-wook, they could not help but curse. This fellow tricked them again. Chu Chaoyun was sent flying by Tuze's palm strike. He lay sprawled in the air. Before he could stand up, he saw a multicolored light gathering above him. The 7-colored pagoda that Chu Chaoyun's sword strike had already scattered reformed. Now, it gave off a bright divine light and struck at Chu Chaoyun like a lightning bolt. Chu Chaoyun's lips curled up slightly. Even though he faced this lightning strike, his expression remained calm and unruffled. This is a manifestation of the radiant will. I knew long ago that it would not shatter so easily. The light and darkness in Xiao Chen's left and right eyes respectively vanished. The incomplete state of primal chaos behind him also slowly vanished. What replaced Xiao Chen's eyes was a blazing, pure golden flame. The instant that the 7-colored pagoda was about to reach him, the heavenly flame surged out and instantly encased the 7-colored pagoda. Di-wook cried out in pain as he fell from the sky. When he landed heavily on the ground, he started rolling. The white-haired girl, who had been using the holy wall to block the cultivators of the other races, quickly removed it when she saw the situation. Then, she sent out a divine wind and blew away the heavenly flame on the 7-colored pagoda. The white-haired girl raised the divine halberd and held the 7-colored pagoda in her hand. Then, she quickly headed in the direction where Di-wook had landed. Di-wook got up with much difficulty. When he saw a corner of the 7-colored pagoda that had been burned to ashes, he could not help feeling a heartache. He gritted his teeth and spat out 2 words, heavenly flame. After dealing with the biggest problem, Chu Chaoyun no longer had any misgivings. Chu Chaoyun swept his gaze around, and the vast expanse of heavenly flame turned into sharp arrows, shooting at the geniuses of the various races who were still trying to hit the Rock of Origin. The speed of the golden flame arrows was startlingly fast. Several people could not dodge in time and were struck directly. Their protective quintessence instantly ignited. The cultivators in the air all panicked. They could not extinguish this flame no matter what they did. It could even ignite any secret treasure. Their protective quintessence did not come out at all. Once they exhausted their quintessence, the strange flame would burn them. Among them, Tu Zhe was the unluckiest. Earlier, he had been knocked dizzy. Before he could even protect his body with quintessence, the flame burned his clothes. His hair and eyebrows were all burned off. As he screamed in the air, when he saw that the flame could not be extinguished, he panicked and jumped into the divine spring below. Coincidentally, after Tu Zhe jumped into the divine spring, the flame on his body immediately vanished. However, his entire body was burned until he was completely naked. His hair was gone, his eyebrows were gone, and even his spatial ring was burned away. His clothes were also burned to a golden light. Soon, Tu Zhe's bald head sank into the divine spring. He simply had no face left. When the various cultivators in the air saw that the divine spring had a miraculous effect on the golden flame, they all jumped in as well. They looked at Chu Chaoyun, and no one dared to fly over to stop him. Just when everyone thought that no one dared to make a move, a white figure soared into the air and blocked Chu Chaoyun's path. Naturally, Xiao Chen wanted to fight for the Rock of Origin as well. He would not let Chu Chaoyun take it away so easily. As for that troublesome heavenly flame, others might not have a way to deal with it, but Xiao Chen was somewhat confident. Furthermore, Chu Chaoyun had used so much of the 1/10 of the heavenly flame. There might not be much left. Electric light flashed under Xiao Chen's feet, and he arrived before Chu Chaoyun in one step. He looked at the other party calmly and said, "Hand over the Rock of Origin." "Is that possible? The Void Stone is not that easy to find. If you miss this chance, there will not be another." Chu Chaoyun held his sword with one hand. The golden flame in his eyes flickered endlessly, ready to burst forth at any moment. A purple light and a white light appeared in Xiao Chen's left and right eyes. He said, "In that case, make your move. After not seeing you for 2 years, I want to see how much you have grown." Chu Chaoyun smiled calmly and said, "I'm afraid that I will have to disappoint you. My improvement is much greater than yours. I comprehended the will of light and darkness half a year ago. In the end, the one who will defeat you will still be me. Furthermore, I have already grasped half of the 1/10 of the heavenly flame. Do you still dare to block me?" Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he retorted indifferently, "Why would I not dare?" Whoosh! Chu Chaoyun pointed with his sword, and the remaining golden flames in his eyes spewed out, turning into 2 fire dragons that roared at Xiao Chen. Rustling sounds rang out in the air. Everywhere the fire dragons passed, they left behind large patches of pitch-black space. Even the air was burned. What kind of flame is this? Fortunately, this person did not grasp much of it. If he had more, who could block him? The group of people in the heavenly spring exchanged glances. They had never heard of such a strange flame in the world. This is a heavenly flame. However, it has been lost for many years. It is impossible for it to gather again. If it were a complete heavenly flame, it could even burn a small plane. The red-dressed ghost race girl looked at Xiao Chen in the air and frowned as she spoke. The gazes of the others did not leave Xiao Chen either. Just a tiny bit of the heavenly flame was already very troublesome for them. They really wanted to know why Xiao Chen did not dare to dodge when faced with so many heavenly flames. Xiao Chen did not panic. He stretched out his hand and pointed. 2 beams of light, one purple and one white, quickly came out of his eyes. Then, they chased each other and formed a Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram. Chapter 8:14 The two opposing forces of yin and yang merged perfectly with the Taiji diagram. The 8 trigrams, yin-yang, 4 divisions, and all sorts of mysterious phenomena appeared. The entire world seemed to be contained within this mysterious diagram. The 2 fire dragons formed by the heavenly flame crashed into the Taiji yin-yang diagram with a loud bang. The scene of the Taiji yin-yang diagram burning to ashes as everyone expected did not appear. On the contrary, the 2 fire dragons formed by the heaven flames suddenly shattered and turned into countless dazzling flames, which flew back into Chu Chaoyun's eyes. Xiaoqin smiled gently. Indeed, the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram could block the heavenly fire. The heavenly fire came from yin and yang. If it could be gathered, it could burn everything in the world. The Taiji yin-yang flame diagram was unprecedented. It combined yin and yang flames. From a certain point of view, it also transcended yin and yang. Chu Chaoyun had already used up more than half of his heavenly fire. Now that he was facing the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram, he was naturally no match for Xiaoqin, who was ready to attack. The result of the heavenly flame shattering left the group of people below dumbfounded. Not only did Xiaoqin not fear the heavenly flame, but he even had the upper hand. Stretching his hand out, Chen Feng pushed out and the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram pressed down on Chu Chaoyun. All sorts of strange phenomena suddenly appeared in all directions. It was as though a small world was pressing down on him. Surprise flashed in Chu Chaoyun's eyes, but he soon reacted. The wills of light and darkness reappeared as he lashed out with a chaotic sword qi that was a mixture of gold and black. Bang! Bang! The sword qi was like a flood as it continuously struck the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Cracks slowly appeared on the diagram. After all, the might of the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram had declined after going against the heavenly flame. It was barely able to withstand the sword qi formed by Chu Chaoyun's dual wills. The instant the Taiji yin-yang 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 Taiji shouted. With a loud bang, the flame diagram completely shattered, turning into 2 rays of light that entered Xiaoqin's eyes. However, Xiaoqin took advantage of the situation to draw the lunar shadow saber. The purple talisman soared into the sky. When Xiaoqin swung his saber, lightning crackled in the sky, rumbling loudly. It felt like the sky was going to fall. Heavenly lightning tribulation. With a point of the saber, 100 streaks of lightning turned into lightning flood dragons that tore through the clouds. These lightning flood dragons were all formed from will talismans and contained an immortal attribute. They were created by copying the supreme divine lightning. Then, he swung his sword. The primal chaos behind him materialized the everlasting sword Dao's 3rd move, Dawn of 1,000 Armies. The chaotic scene behind him materialized the 3rd move of the limitless sword Dao, Dawn of 1,000 Armies. Streams of chaotic qi merged together to form swords filled with light and darkness qi. When the swords appeared, a violent gale howled and 1,000 swords hummed, causing the space around them to tremble violently. The spirit flame heaven spirit yu spirit's sword and yang qi. 1,000 swords tars tore and 1,000 swords. 10 swords tore through the air, looking like a vast army sweeping through the battlefield. Overall, Xiaoqin's lightning flood dragon was at a disadvantage. The lightning flood dragon was covered in cuts and bruises. If not for its immortal attribute, it would have been defeated instantly. Overall, Xiaoqin's lightning flood dragon was at a slight disadvantage. The lightning flood dragon was covered in wounds. If not for its immortal attribute, it would have been defeated in an instant. The two flashed in the air and arrived at the center of the chaotic battlefield. Then, they started fighting in close combat. Sword light and saber light clashed, clanging endlessly in the air. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Light and darkness intertwined. As the two fought intensely, the 100 seals on the door of light finally broke. Chu Chaoyun's expression turned grave as he quickly swallowed a black jade pendant that had already dimmed significantly. Cassier. Cassier. 5 pitch-black spatial tears appeared where Xiao Qin stood. The spatial tears spread out and easily crushed the surrounding lightning flood dragons and swords into powder. However, Xiao Qin was still too late. After Chu Chaoyun swallowed the jade pendant, his body immediately turned into nothingness. The 5 Emperor Wus of the various races appeared out of nowhere. When they saw Chu Chaoyun escaping from their hands, their expressions turned somewhat unsightly. The instant they broke the seal, they immediately felt the aura of the demonic world coming from Chu Chaoyun. So they did not hesitate to make a move, instantly tearing space apart. Unexpectedly, Chu Chaoyun still managed to escape. When the 5 Emperor Wus worked together, they could not even block a half-sage. If word of this got out, it would be a big joke. The deity race Emperor Wu said, "If I did not see wrong, he swallowed a void jade pendant, forged from a void stone." The expressions of the other 4 changed slightly. The fiend race Emperor Wu suppressed the berserk aura in his eyes. He said in a cold voice, "It is hard to find a small piece of void stone even in 1,000 years. How much effort would it take to forge a jade pendant out of it? No wonder he could avoid the devouring formation and escape from our hands. It looked like a void stone had a great origin." However, they did not know how Chu Chaoyun obtained it. Xiao Qin thought of something and said, "Seniors, the void jade pendant that he spoke of does not seem to have much effect. Its color has already dimmed significantly. He probably cannot go far." The expression of the white-haired deity race old man in golden armor changed. He said, quickly, "Chase after him. We should have thought of that. The devouring formation will exhaust most of the void jade pendant's energy." Hu Qi. A light flashed, and the 5 Emperor Wus flew off somewhere, vanishing from everyone's sight. However, Xiao Qin shook his head slightly. He did not think that these people had much of a chance of catching up to Chu Chaoyun. Given Chu Chaoyun's character, he would not come to this dragon's lair or tiger's lair unless he was completely confident. There would definitely be someone outside to receive him. Furthermore, that person would be as strong as Emperor Wu. It might even be possible for the demon monarch to come personally. However, this exchange confirmed Di Wux's judgment. Chu Chaoyun's will of primal chaos was indeed full of openings. It was far from truly merging with the will of primal chaos. However, when it truly merged, how horrifying would its might be? Just thinking about it made one tremble in fear. It was already so horrifying without truly merging it. Once it merged, it would be even more terrifying. In the space-time tunnel of the plane, the mysterious man and woman from earlier looked at Chu Chaoyun with excited expressions. The woman looked pure and pretty. However, there was a charm in her eyes that tugged at one's heartstrings. At first glance, she was like clear water, penetrating one's heart and relaxing one's sight and ears. If one took a few more glances, one would unknowingly become engrossed in her, feeling a boundless temptation. There was no need to purposely try to please her, she already possessed an irresistible charm. This woman was none other than the Eros demon Leng Yu, who had spent a long time with Xiao Qin in the Sky Dome Realm's boundless deep sea. However, compared to 4 years ago, the current Leng Yu had lost her gentleness. Now, she had gained a domineering air, giving off a vague feeling of being unrivaled. Her aura was even more unfathomable. If Xiao Qin were here, he would definitely be greatly startled. As for that mysterious black-robed man, he was handsome with delicate facial features. However, there was a sinister air in his eyes. From the side, his silhouette actually resembled Xiao Qin somewhat. If Xiao Qin saw it, the shock he would feel would be no less than Leng Yu's. This person was the mysterious church master of the Sky Dome Realm's Dark Church. However, Xiao Qin did not know whether this was his true body or a clone. The mysterious man's lips curled up as he said somewhat indifferently, "Take it out. Let me see how big the Rock of Origin is after you wasted the priceless void jade pendant. If the Rock of Origin that I obtained is not as valuable as the void jade pendant, then that would be really funny." Leng Yu opened her eyes and looked at Chu Chaoyun with anticipation. Whoosh! Chu Chaoyun smiled gently and released his tightly clenched left hand. Instantly, a dazzling light shone everywhere. The mysterious man and Leng Yu could not help but squint slightly. When Chu Chaoyun squinted and looked through the rings of light, he saw an azure-colored stone the size of a pinky lying quietly in his palm. All the light was coming from there. The stone was very small. Calling it the size of a pinky was actually an exaggeration. However, the mysterious man and Leng Yu could not help laughing, clearly pleasantly surprised. Originally, I was planning for the worst. You only brought back one light of origin. Unexpectedly, it is such a big piece. It is more than enough for the three of us to split evenly, Leng Yu said warmly. A light flashed in the mysterious man's eyes, and he revealed an evil air. He smiled and said, "Split evenly? When did I say that we would split evenly? I want at least 70%. As for the remaining 30%, you can decide for yourselves." Leng Yu frowned slightly, and her expression turned cold. She said, "Teng Xiao, don't go overboard." Chu Chaoyun's expression did not change. It was like he had expected this mysterious man to say that. He did not argue with him. A golden flame started to gather in the depths of his eyes as he looked at the other party indifferently. The black-robed man smiled sinisterly and said, "Leng Yu, do you think you can regain the position of demon monarch without me establishing a connection with the Dark Church's headquarters? Can you recover your strength? Right now, I don't even know where he is, still hiding from your sister's pursuit." Then, the black-robed man looked at Chu Chaoyun and said, "You too. Don't think that you are undefeatable just because you have a tenth of the heavenly flame. In the eyes of high-ranked cultivators, the heavenly flame in your eyes that can burn everything is just a joke. I am already thinking very highly of you by giving you 30%. Chu Chaoyun glanced at the chaotic, crisscrossing patterns of time and space that formed a barrier. Then, he said casually, "Since you do not want to negotiate properly, then you might as well not take it." After Chu Chaoyun spoke, he tossed the rock of origin in his hand toward the barrier of time and space. If it really fell into the flow of time and space, even Emperor Wu would not be able to retrieve it. The black-robed man's expression turned startled. His figure flashed, and before the rock of origin touched the barrier, he caught it by a hair's breadth. In the end, when the black-robed man looked at it, he discovered that it was just an ordinary rock. The true rock of origin was still in Chu Chaoyun's hand. Chu Chaoyun was smiling at him meaningfully. Rage flashed in the black-robed man's eyes. He said sullenly, "I want at least 50%. Otherwise, who knows how long it will take to undo the seal on my body." Leng Yu thought for a while and said, "I want 30%. Right now, my strength is not at its peak yet. Otherwise, I will not be confident of completing the Dark Church's mission during the demonic god blood sacrifice."